She's on the call, and she's going to be here in a few minutes. She's on.
Yep, she's there.
All right, we will go ahead and call the order. The August 17th, 2023 meeting of the Villa Sol Community Development District. First item we have on the agenda is roll call.
Starting.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Mr. Cordova?
Here.
Mr. Gagnon?
Present.
Mr. Comas?
Here.
Mr. Edgecombe?
I'm here.
Perfect. For the record, we have 4 board members present. We have our quorum. We have 1 on the phone. We'll stand up and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item we have on our agenda tonight is public comment period. We will ask that anybody who would like to provide public comment, you can do so now. We'll take you kind of first come, first serve up at the podium. We do have a sign-in sheet for you to sign in, so we make sure we get your name proper in the minutes. We'd ask that you please state your name and address for the record and keep your comments to 3 minutes. Also, just everyone try to be as respectful as we can, and we'll go ahead and just start letting you line up.
I have a question on the agenda for KUA. I see we're going to put some lights up over on Sangria. I thought that was HOA. All that area.
I'm lost. What happened again?
On Sangria, you're going to put 4 or 5 lights, street lights. I thought that was all HOA. You go to HOA meeting, you hear HOA. You come here, now you can put lights there.
Well, they can check what it is because some of the lights that were approved before, to check who's managed those, who paid for those lights over there. We need to figure out where's the money coming from. If it's Cdd, then we have to keep paying those.
Yeah, because the CDD,
just the road.
Yeah, the CDD entered into that agreement because the CDD owns the roads and right of way, which would include where street lights.
No, it's not. You go to HOA and they say the HOA.
So just to clarify that the engineer has stated here previously that Sangria and Menorca are not part of the CDD, the roadways. So that's what he's alluding to is the lights in that
It
area.
seems like we're putting the cart before the horse, you know, that we're doing all this stuff. And I think we should take a step back and see who owns what over there. You know,
So there's 4 lights going there?
Yeah, just figure out who's paying it right now. You know, if we've been paying those, then we continue as whatever.
Whatever it's HOA, let the HOA know.
And then if he's the HOA, correct, then remove them from the contract and then just send the bill to the HOA.
Okay, we'll take a look at those.
Yeah.
I want to know the action that you're going to take about this the hole that is behind of
Biotero? Yeah.
It's 2 there and one more, there's one more than 6 months there.
Correct.
Nobody take action about that.
Yeah, right now we're gonna discuss that on the meeting. We got proposals that take a little time because the engineering had to get involved. We need to get a crew to go under the pipes. That's what is taking a little longer. Plus the CDD to make a decision, we have to be on a meeting to be able to approve things. Yes.
Okay, and one more thing that I want to know is it's like 6 months or since April that we don't have any gate.
Correct. Yeah, the gate is already
so. And what are you doing with the money that they pay for those months that we don't pay state company?
Well, the board decided back in May to terminate the contract with Envera because we were paying $10,000 a month for something that it wasn't giving us.
But company like the same thing, so I thought it was going to be better, but
No, because they're installing the new equipment.
Right.
They're repairing all the pavers.
That time, April, May, June, July.
Well, they started on July to start installing.
Well, we stopped paying Envera, so Envera is not being paid. What we're doing.
No money for us to do another.
Yeah, that money has been basically allocated to do the new gate install with the new system and under the new beds.
So right now, I don't know if you noticed, they put the new black gates on the left-hand side. Now they're doing the exit, and maybe by the end of this month, everything is going to be good, operational. Just make sure they have your information because it's going to be something that you manage on your own, you know, like the entry for your house.
Okay. One more thing, the trash cans that we have, the problem that we have in the hotel. And it's a lot of people that don't take him from their homes to move there because it's long distance. So it's heavy.
Understand?
How long we have to wait for those things because it's gonna be very dangerous, it's smelly.
Correct.
I mean, we're hopeful that the board will approve our proposals tonight. We'll get the vendors to make those repairs as soon as possible. Putting the trash cans in those locations was essentially the only solution we could have to make sure that those folks got trash pickup.
Yeah,
But,
because
you
I
know-
saw the car went to the last part where the port is, but why they didn't pick up the right side if they were able to do it?
The county.
They just went back, but they didn't do anything, so they.
I know, I got a complaint about that the recycling went by, but the trash didn't want to go through. So that's the thing, he called waste management and we cannot control the crew, what they do. That's the direction they give us to do final allocation.
Thank you.
Hello, Scott Monahan, 3016 Camino Real Drive South. So I want to make a proposal, what I have heard through the community, and even myself since I moved in last December, is that when I first came here, I never got any documents from the CDD, how to pay my monthly HOA, and I didn't get any documents whatsoever other than Herman, I saw him on the side of the road and talking with him. So I want to propose something about putting a sign right in front of the community when you enter, either a QR code or something somebody can scan to go to the Visual website to get any sort of information that they need, even front steps, even like the YouTube community channel that we have. So I want to put that proposal together. You can create a QR code that will give as many links as the person needs. So when they come in, they have something immediately. Everyone knows QR codes at this point, so I would think a QR code would be perfect for someone to scan. Even, I don't even care if it's LED or something dynamic that would let you change, but I think it would help everybody. Everyone in the community, because right now, everyone is sort of complaining that they don't have a lot of information. And I see a lot of people moving in, and I would even like to create something welcoming for them. Mario and I are working on a welcoming package. But a QR code would be perfect for everyone when they come into CDD, to all the websites for them to go to, so.
Thank you. Would that require, legal to get involved in that?
No. So I mean, that's something that we can do. Some of our districts have started doing that. I'm got a little backed up last week. I'm working on some FAQs so that we can give something to the HOA that actually explains what the CDD is, how it operates, what the kind of the parameters and guidelines of the CDD are. So we'll get that together shortly. And that's something that we can definitely, you can put a QR code out, and it can just link to either the HOA website, which can have a bunch of links to the CDD and everything else, including that FAQ, or we can do it the opposite. You can make it to the CDD page and then route it to whoever it needs to go to.
Exactly, the QR code I created lets you put as many links as you want, and you can change them when you want, so something like that, if you guys created something, especially the towing thing, even something to let people know ahead of time, right? Even notifications, and then as soon as, even if someone new moved in, like I said in the morning when my daughter goes to school, I talked to all the people at the bus route, and I talked to 5 people, and not one of them knew a lot more renters, so I'll give you that, but a lot of them have no idea where to go to see some of the rules and things like that. So.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll work on something like that for you.
Okay.
And a good location, I think, is the white, the board between the entry gates, it's like a glass thing.
The question is, will they be able to scan it through their cars as well?
It should.
I mean, we could also put it up here at the clubhouse, which may be a little safer if people are
Yeah, that too.
driving through.
Yeah.
I mean, somewhere even outside, because if a lot of people are using the facility around, we can put it in several places.
You can actually, you can make stickers in the poop stalls.
Yeah.
We have plans to replace the signage out there anyways. I can just add a little placard on there with QR code if you're looking for information about the CDD here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else, open to the public, the comments before we close it?
All right, we can go ahead and close it. We'll go on to district engineer's report. Peter, are you on?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
We got you.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, I have 3 items on the agenda. The first one is just the typical report letter that we supply after we do the yearly inspections, called the district engineer report. And basically this letter is used to go to the bonded company to let them know that the CDD is maintaining their facilities and infrastructure as needed. Is there any questions about that?
No, you're good.
All right. The next item on the agenda is the stormwater program. We have a summary. Basically, the first thing you have on your agenda is a spreadsheet. I believe it's probably inserted in there twice by mistake, or maybe
It's 2 pages.
the order
Zone 1 and Zone 2.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. There's 2 spreadsheets, 2 sheets. They may be separated by a divider, but there's 2 sheets that are summarizing the details of it. This is only for the, if anybody wants to really dig in the details and find out where did we find the defects. This is the result of the 2 zones that we inspected last year. The CCTV inspections, we reviewed every pipe, looked at every defect, and then looked at the location of that defect within the pipe and also what's on the surface to prioritize these defects for repair. And based on those findings, we created those 2 spreadsheets that summarize the pipe location, the type of defect, and what we recommend for a repair. And also the last column is the estimated cost of that repair. We also provide that in a visual format. There are 3 maps in the agenda. The first map is for Zone 1. And Zone 1 shows in color codes what we're showing in blue is basically pipe that has been repaired in the past and does not require additional repair, or it is in good condition. The 2 other colors, whether it's yellow or red, the yellow means that pipe has some spot repairs that are needed. Red means it's a full pipe repair. We also have call outs on each pipe that shows the location of that defect. That's for Zone 1, same thing for Zone 2. The same color coding and the location of the defects are noted on there. The last thing we have in that report is in the stormwater program report is the remaining zones that were slated out for inspection. So basically that third map shows zones 1 through 5, and we have completed zones 1 and 2. There's a total for the cost of repairs. And total for both zones to be repaired is shown on the second spreadsheet. You'll see Zone 1 total is Zone 2 total is 122,730 and 90 cents. Zone 1 is 111,000. The total is 234,000. Now, I want to give some quick background on this. A couple years ago, when we were asked to create a program or reevaluate the repairs for the storm system, which triggered an increase in the dues for the CDD. The analysis that was done back then, if anyone reviews that report, that analysis was not for the entire community. The analysis was only for what you see as basically zone 1. So at that time, the analysis showed that the potential cost, we did not know the conditions of the pipes, we only knew about a few. At that time, it showed that the potential cost to repair everything in just Zone 1 would have been close to $600,000. So this is good news that Zone 1 is a lot less defects, still pretty severe, $400,000, but that's the good news, is that it's not as bad as it was as we expected. And we expected it based on, we inspected just a section, a short section, looked at what the defects are in it, and then we projected it for the rest of the zone. That's how we looked at it back then. We didn't get the CCTV for everything. So going back, we have zones 1 and 2, and then the defects and the cost for repairing that. Now, if these items are not addressed, the items that are noted as needed to be addressed, this would continue to basically, these are areas where there's a broken joint or there's soil that is coming into the pipe, which will continue to create a void on top of the pipe. And the CDD has had a few of those where that void will grow and it will cause a bigger issue at the surface. So that's why we recommend for these to be addressed as soon as possible. Any questions on this item?
Yeah, I do. So, Peter, what I'm trying to find out is I understand that these repairs need to be done, and I understand the cost, and I really appreciate you putting all this together because it's very easy to understand. But the question I have is, I don't think that all this work can be done in 1 year, or could it? Hello?
I mean, it's honestly, yes, I can hear you. So you're saying you don't know if all this work needs to be done in 1 year?
No. I'm saying can it be done in 1 year?
Oh, sorry. Go. Oh, can it all be done in 1 year?
Yes.
I mean, we can basically, a lot of the work is basically doing section CICC. It would be a lot of work. It will take a long time because it's just sporadic everywhere. But it can. You'll basically, if we hire a contractor to do all this work, I would assume it would probably take them a year to just get through all of it. But again, I haven't really looked into the construction duration.
Yeah, and what about, out of all the zone 1 and 2 recommendations you made, are there some issues that are more critical than others that maybe we could address those first?
So basically, all the items that we identified are critical. If anything, if we're trying to separate them, we would separate them probably by location. For example, if an item is under a roadway or next to like a house foundation or something, that's something that we need to address right away. If it's in a grass area, it's not as critical. We still need to monitor it just so it doesn't create a void and somebody falls into it.
So can we do that? Like, I'd like to see like broken up with the most critical parts first, and kind of for us to be able to think about maybe approving a phase at a time, and once they're done, move on to the next one, and so on, because I just think it's just a lot to just approve, and budget-wise, and also, I just think it's gonna take a lot of time, and if they've got a lot of crews working everywhere, it gets very sloppy, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion.
Well, that's why, process-wise, if the board was inclined to move forward, obviously this is not an actual bid. This is their estimates of what the cost is. Based on the dollar amounts, we'd have to have the engineer actually complete an RFP process. So he'd go out and get a vendor. And if it's the board's recommendation as part of that, we could include a phasing, or, that vendor needs to tell us, how long is this project going to take you? And can we do it in different ways to, address critical issues first? But that would be part of the process of him going out and actually getting bids for all of this work.
Yeah, because that makes sense, because let's see, if we approve this to do the whole thing, and the company, the vendor cannot do it for 2 years, it takes him 2 years, so it's better just to do whatever we can each year, instead of just approving whole amount and then get tight on money just because we approve everything at once. So I'm agreeing to do whatever is critical, first.
Well, I think until we actually do the RFP process and get specific pricing for all of these items, you wouldn't be able to identify which ones are more critical than another.
And another question about, now that you mentioned the CCTVs, I know we have a budget in there about CCTV. That's the whole 5 zones already on the budget, or what is that? I just want to get clarity.
You're talking about the budget for next year?
Yeah, the 185 that we always have every year for the CCTVs.
The 185 was for CCTV and repairs.
Right.
It was basically to cover the repairs for that year plus enough CCTV to find out what we need to repair the following year. So what we would need to do now is to go out and get bids for CCTV in Zone 3, which is the multifamily area that we have already seen some issues with. And then that will tell us what we need to do. But the CCTV itself budget is not the whole 185. It's only a portion of that. The rest of it is meant to go for repairs.
And then we're doing cleaning as well, right?
Correct. We do clean only if we need to, because cleaning is per foot. When we have a company come out to clean, they charge per foot. So we only ask them to clean if they absolutely have to clean it to be able to get the camera through it.
Okay.
Maria.
Yeah,
Because otherwise it will get really expensive.
now, is the CDD also responsible for stormwater in that area that's in question, whether or not it belongs to the CDD? Because phase 5 looks like it includes Sangria and Menorca.
Well, I'll have to figure that one out. I mean, I imagine that the CDD is probably the master stormwater permit is in the CDD's name, which is typically how the stormwater districts, they don't like to have stormwater infrastructure in names of HOAs. They like to have it in CDDs. But we'll definitely double check that before.
Okay.
And for purposes of the board, as we get to the budget discussion later, I mean, we did allocate between remaining funds this year because there was already 93,000 spent on stormwater earlier in the year. So we left the remaining 93, and there's 142 next year, basically to accomplish this whole project based on the estimates
Gotcha.
of the engineer. So that's what's been allocated in your budget.
Any questions? No.
Do we need to make a motion to move forward?
I think the direction, if the board would want to, is to make a motion to direct your engineer to engage in the RFP process for all of these repairs. And then he'll bring back actual numbers from bids that we'll be able to take action on later.
I don't have a question for Peter. Peter,
Yes.
what's gonna happen with the CCTV for section or zone 3 and 4?
So that's what we need to do also as part of what we need to do now is to TV section 3, and then whatever we have, if we have budget to TV additional sections, so we can get estimates of what needs to be repaired for the remaining of the CDD. So the CDD can. My recommendation would be to also budget for doing additional CCTV for Zone 3. Zone 3 already is showing some issues, and there could be some other underlying problems that we need to detect.
When we raised the assessment back in 2020 to 21, we agreed to have section 1 and 2 done first, and that's done. And then the year after, which is this one, it will be zone 3 and 4. And then in 2024, we're gonna end up with zone 5. Is that correct, or that's changing?
I mean, the plan was to always start with the repairs, and at the end of the year, we do CCTV that will tell us what we need to repair the following year. So as we're approaching the end of this year, the money that's remaining in the budget, some of that money should go to do an additional CCTV, so we know what we need to fix after this project is over, and so on. Now, that could be zone 3 or it could be zone 3 and 4. We would also have to get bids for that because what we got last year would not be valid today.
Do you have an estimate amount how much that will be for zone 3?
I can quickly look up what the number we got last year. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
Process?
I mean,
He's asking a totally different question.
again, it's up to the board. You can certainly make a
I'll
motion.
keep looking for it and report.
What was that, Peter?
I was saying, so I don't hold everyone up, I'll look up that number that we got last year and report it.
Okay. So I'll make the motion to
Unless you want to
get
wait.
the engineer to move forward with the RFP process.
Do you want to do both the project and the CCTV while he's there? I mean,
You're talking about the CCTV for zone 3?
Yeah. I think.
Well, just
I
to
mean,
get the proposal,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah, to get the proposals.
Okay.
At least so we have the exact number, how much it's gonna be. I second the
Those would
motion.
probably be separate for proposals, just for CCTV, and then the repairs by itself.
Correct.
Well, only for zone 3, the CCTV.
Yeah. Okay. We've got a motion and a second to go ahead and have the engineer do a RFP for zones 1 and 2 repair, as well as a CCTV for zone 3. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously.
All right, one question, Jason, now when we're doing the RFP, we have to let contractors know about when they would do the work, when they get a notice to proceed. And as I heard you earlier say that the full amount of funds will not be available until the next fiscal year.
We can make it work. I mean, we have the funds now. I mean, I'm assuming that if you know, 30-day bid, by the time we actually get anybody under contract, it's going to be October 1st, so all the funds will be available then.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent, sounds good.
And then plus
All
we're
right.
getting month to month now.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to go through the roadway.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so the next item, the last item on the agenda is the roadway bids that we received. We received bids from 4 contractors. One of the contractors, we had required that they do something called thermoplastic paint. Basically, it's a plastic paint that replaces all the white markings in the CDD. Usually, if they just use regular paint, it will fade away. So, in your package, the very first sheet, we have 3 different tables, and I'll explain real quick why we have 3 different tables. We asked the contractors, each of them, we had an estimate of the total quantity, because this project will be paid based on quantity, not like a lump sum. So we asked them, we put in an estimated quantity, but we asked every contractor to do their own measurements and report the quantity that they also found. So the reason why we have this 3 different tables is because not everybody did it based on their own calculated quantity. Some of them just went with the numbers we estimated. So the first table basically shows how much, based on the unit prices that they submitted, how much each of them would cost the CDD if the quantities was all the same by each one of them. So basically, if we hold the quantities constant based on our estimates, that's that first table. It would show that DNE would be 112,000, DMI is 120,895, and so on. Highlighted in green is the lowest, and red is the highest, with the exception that road paving, again, they did not really say they can do the work as we specified it, so we did not put that as one of the options unless the CDD has a different reason to consider that.
Who was that speaking? He said?
Rose paving. Yeah, he said, and then there's a note in there that says they didn't include the thermoplastic paint like everybody else.
Yeah, I
So,
see that, okay.
yeah, that's why theirs could be a little cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah. The second table basically is based on the quantities that each contractor calculated for themselves. And that one shows DMI as being, if they went with their own quantities, that would be, DMI would be the lowest. The last table is basically taken, honestly, all these tables are not in there to confuse you. Hopefully they're in there to basically help you make a decision. The third table is if we took the average of the quantities that are done by all the contractors, just so we can get like a ballpark of some factors of error, that would be the last table. I wouldn't make a decision based on the last table because that's just the average of the quantities. So the decision, you would make it based on the first table or the second table. Between, honestly, I mean, our recommendation would be between DNE or DMI. Their prices are pretty close to one another. But either of them should be capable of doing the work.
Peter, one question. I met before with some of the vendors, and I just got a question about the seal coat and the ones that we need to do an inch mill. Uh, Pretty much we know the Otero, that's falling apart. So I don't know how a seal coat can go there where already the asphalt is gone on the back alleys and pretty much Via Palma. And then the one that is on Riachuelo that is saying that we need to do an inch mill, that one looks better than the other ones. And that one, most of them, they were saying that that one should be a seal coat instead of inch mill. I just want to know, you know.
What was the second road? I got Via Otero. What was the other one?
So pretty much they're saying that the scope of work is backwards, pretty much.
Which is the other street, he's asking.
Yeah, just to make it easier.
The Otero what?
Via Otero, Via Palma, and those are seal coat, and they say they're supposed to be in 1 inch mill. And then Riachuelo Lane, that is 1 inch mill, they mentioned that that one's supposed to be seal coat. I just want to make sure, you know, we are doing.
The recommendation is accurate. So basically, the way we got this recommendation is we hired the geotechnical engineer that came in. They took core samples of the pavement to see how thick the pavement is. And based on the thickness of the pavement, they made the recommendation. The thickness where it looks like they have cracks that are opening all the way down into the base, or if the pavement is not thick enough, that's where they recommended doing a 1 inch mill resurface. If the pavement was thick enough, which Via Otero is one of those areas that we also in the past noted that it looks like some of that multifamily areas should have had a second lift, but never got the second lift, and you would see that as basically the curb. If you drive through it at the edge of everybody's curb, it looks like there's a lift.
Yep.
And some people even try to put some stuff down. So a second lift was never put on. However, that could have, now that we know the thickness of the pavement, it could have been that the developer didn't put a second lift on because he already accomplished the thickness with the first lift. But it, it caused a different issue. So to be able to mitigate that issue, you would basically go in and do an overlay. But based on the core samples, the pavement there is thick enough that it doesn't need the mill and resurface now. I understand that it has some issues. We did some repairs in Via Palma, but when they took the core samples, generally it was a stricter pavement than the other areas.
Okay. Understood.
If someone's on the phone line, if you can mute yourselves, please, we're getting a lot of feedback. So I guess the kind of the decision point for the board, if you want to make the decision tonight, is which vendor you'd like to use. Obviously, there's kind of different ways to look at it. So in one case, the DNE, when they used the engineer supplied numbers, was the cheaper bidder. When they calculated their own, DMI was the cheaper bidder. And I think, Peter, do you have any experience with either one of those firms?
Honestly, neither of them have I had experience with. No.
So.
And the board does bring up a good point. They give us the unit price. So if after we engage a contractor, we decided to change, the locations, let's do 1 inch here and then seal coat there and remove some seal coating, we should be able to work through that with them since we have the unit pricing that the contractor is being awarded based on the unit price.
Now, this is what are we paying for with this? What is this amount? How much paving is this going to be done?
This Riachuelo, Via Palma is going to be seal coat.
Just that side of the
Yeah, there's a map that follows those. It's in your agenda, it's page 19. So on 19, if you look,
I'm back.
the blue is what he's showing as mill and resurface, the green is the seal coating.
Now, this is not going to include the repairs of the depression we have now. Right?
No.
We haven't gotten there yet.
No, we haven't got there yet. But this is also not, this would have to be come out of that 300,000 that we've allocated, so this project is not specifically budgeted for in your budget right now. So this would have to be targeted out of the 300,000 worth of capital reserve.
Gotcha.
So how much are we gonna be using out of the 300?
If you completed this project as well as the other roadway work, we'd be looking at around 200 of the 300 we'd be utilizing.
Then we're gonna be talking about what he just mentioned, about the alternatives.
I don't know. I think, this is again, the situation I talked about last meeting. We're planning to pave and repave certain areas that haven't had CCTV yet. We don't know what's going on. Depressions are happening. We're gonna put fresh asphalt there. 2 years later, we're gonna get a depression. There goes our money down the drain. So I think we need to assess this area thoroughly before we be paving on this area. In my opinion, I think that's, we need to make sure the infrastructure is good, not just the aesthetics. Because otherwise, I'm telling you, we're throwing money in the garbage.
I agree with it.
And that area is not any of the areas that have been CCTV. But I think that area needs a depression fixed like yesterday. And I expect more depressions to be coming. That's why I don't want to even think about paving this area.
Yeah, because those are 3 and 4, so I think if we're gonna do something, if we're gonna repair some 1 and 2, right? With however we said it already, then it's 1 and 2, then it's gonna be the first one getting the street repaid, because we're gonna be fixing already the piping, and nothing's gonna be, surprised, a sinkhole or something.
So is it the board's direction then to hold on the paving? Do you want to go ahead?
On this area, if you don't want to pave this area until the CCTV is done.
Okay.
So we need a scope for zone 1 and 2.
For paving for the other zones that have.
Just keep in mind, zone 2 was recommended for a 2-inch mill resurface. So that is going to be quite a bit more cost. Zone 2. Everything else, basically, based on what was done by the geotech, everything else was slated for a 2-inch mill resurface.
And now that you mentioned the 2-inch, so the vendors mentioned like going to 2-inch, what you're doing is going all the way down to the base and making it, putting more money where you're not supposed to. That's kind of like what they mentioned, that you can use what we have now as a base and then put on top of that to make.
All right, if you're on the call, if you can please mute yourself again.
Yeah, so if I understand what you're saying correctly, there is a company out there that basically what's
Peter, hold on one second. We're trying to get the other caller muted here.
sorry, I'm not sure if you can hear me okay.
Permiso, puede
There is a
poner.
company out there.
Peter, hold on.
One moment, Peter.
Perdone, puede poner el teléfono en mute porque estamos tratando de hablar y no podemos. Okay, Peter.
Thank you.
So there is a product out there where there's a company that comes in and they grind the surface that you have there, they compact it to use it as pavement or as base. I mean, that's a product that you basically, we can try it. That's not just doing a regular 2-inch typical metal surface. That's a different technology. But I totally understand what you're saying. And when I saw that product, Villasol was one of the places that I thought maybe we should consider it as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, because that's what I'm trying just to see, so when you create the scope, you can create the scope based on what the report mentioned and also create a scope based on utilizing the same asphalt that we had to use it as a, as a base and then go on top of that, just to make it, better.
Just do one zone, the zone that's the worst.
Correct.
Sure. So right now the quote that we have includes zone 1. So if you want to consider maybe saying zone 3 CCTV is still being done, So maybe you want to take out the seal coating from that area, and then if you want to consider going forward with zone 1 repairs, and then we go out and get like a quote for doing zone 2, based on that technology that you saw. We can meet with that contractor and find out the specifications on their product. Basically, we cannot specify a specific company. We would have to have like a generic specification that would meet maybe like different companies that can bid on it. So we can work on that for zone 2. Basically, yeah, zone 2. Zone 1 is already in the current bids that you have in front of you. We can work with the contractors and see if they would only do the stuff that's in zone 1 based on the price.
You mentioned again, zone 1 what again?
So you were just mentioning that you do not want to move forward with repairing the roadways in zone 3 because you don't know the condition of the pipe.
Yeah, well,
Correct?
3 and 4, they're 3 and 4, right?
Correct, yeah.
Correct.
So
what we have on here on the pavement repairs lines up with zone 1 and zone. So basically, I know all these zones are confusing. So what's on the pavement repairs covers zone 1 and zone 3 of the CZTV. What I'm saying, you can take out 3 and do the pavement repairs that are in zone 1.
yeah.
You understand?
And then go out and get bids for zone 2.
For all the residents who are participating, if you could please mute your phone, we're getting a lot of background noise and it's hard for the board to hear the engineer.
So again, Peter, so the storm drain, we have zone 1 and 2 done, and the repair, we already give you what you need to do, right? Zone 1 and 2. The pavement that you gave us, is for 3 and 4.
It's for 1. It's actually for 1 and 3.
1 and 3. Okay, so we're not gonna, or part of 1. Because it's all right at you. No, because 1 is on the other side, it's CS to view. According to this legend, in zone 1, the colors are weird.
So you go in, the zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you using the same ones for the road as for the piping?
I mean, we don't have zones for the roadways, but the roadway repairs covers zone 1 and 3 of the CCTV.
Right. We should just do zone 1, right?
Yeah.
Let's just figure out zone 1. Can we do that, Peter? Let's get the numbers for zone 1.
Yeah, we can.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's just gonna take a lot of the seal coating costs out.
Yeah.
We'll have to work with the contractors to see how much that is. It could take off maybe like $15,000 or something.
And zone 1 again, I just want to know what is.
Looking at zone 1 on the stormwater program, a lot of that crosses roads is in the monitor stage. So
Correct.
we're not doing the put down new to rip up essentially, because it looks like everything that's in the section repair is more in green space in between houses or behind houses, with the exception of a small space outside the clubhouse here.
So
I think
zone
we
1
say-
is reachable, right? Reachable?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So like the 1 and 5 are similar colors on the iPad.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what
it's
it's
hard.
confusing.
Those two are hard, yeah. So, like here it said, zone 3 is townhomes.
Yeah.
Zone 1 is Ranchulo,
Florencia,
and that.
and Puerto del Sol.
So we move forward with getting the stuff for zone 1 according to the stormwater plan, and moving forward with a quote on just that section. I think that's what we're looking for, Peter.
Yeah.
Correct. So basically you're saying, let's try to move forward with doing the roadway repairs that align with zone 1 of the stormwater CCTV, correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. If you guys want to do that, you can, I don't know, Jason, how you'd want to do it. If you want to approve like up to a certain amount and work with the contractors on revising the quantities, we can do that. Based on just the quantities, I think it might take off about $15,000 of the totals that they provided.
So you're saying the seal coat for all of zone 3 is only gonna cost $15,000?
The seal coat's actually, it's a far less intense process. They're essentially just putting like similar to a layer of paint on top of the roadway. It's not that simple. It's a different scope of work. They can do far more of that in a day than they can do mill and resurface, which is a much more intensive process with more equipment. So if you wanted to approve and not to exceed. Sorry, go ahead, Peter.
The mill and resurface is about somewhere between $76,000 and $80,000 of the quote. The remaining $30,000 or so is the seal coating.
So that
if we
one we
take
need to
zone
go
out,
and
zone
start.
3 out,
Yeah,
that's
so
the most
if you look at the tables on
Yeah.
page 15,
Mhm.
so just remove that seal coat line. Essentially, that mill and resurface is what you're left with, which is the project you're looking at. So as he said, it bounces between 75 and one vendor has it at 109. So it's kind of in that range somewhere. So if you wanted to approve a not to exceed of say 90,000, then he could work with the vendor to go ahead and get a final proposal to bring back.
But I just want to make sure we're doing, the roads, it's better because I know the maps are kind of confusing. So I know we're doing Riachuelo, Villa Preciosa, Florencia, right? If we go with zone 1, Peter?
Let me look. I just want to make sure I'm looking at a map that has all the roadway names too.
But you don't want to take all the
It's
rights
not
to
all the Riachuelo, it's just that
take it up to
where the house is. It's from Villa Preciosa to Riachuelo,
Correct.
and part of Puerto del Sol.
But if we fixing, okay.
So
Yeah, it would be Riachuelo Lane, Villa Preciosa, Florencia, and Cambril.
Okay, so the 3 streets, right? It's because the map, it shows also like
Florencia,
kind
Villa
of
Preciosa.
Puerto del Sol.
No, Puerto del Sol is not on the roadway repairs. That's a 2-inch mill and resurface when we get to it.
So if you wanted to reevaluate all of zone 1, then I think that's I think we would need to have that reevaluated, and you could do, he would have to go through and reevaluate all of zone 1, which, may be a different scope of work.
Okay, got you. So then we do Riachuelo, Villa Preciosa, and Florencia, and it should be then Camino Real. No?
just do whatever's included in that.
Yeah, on
proposal.
some.
No seal coating, just
Okay.
do whatever's on that proposal.
Yeah.
So just the mill and resurface for zone 1.
Correct.
Yeah.
Do you want to say that mill and resurface all the way down Riachuelo into zone 3 with the the townhomes are, which we have no idea what's back.
But it doesn't encompass zone 3.
Right, but if you look at what Peter currently has, right, we want to stop Riachuelo at the intersection of Camino Real.
Yes, yeah.
Because if we go farther, we're going into uncharted territory.
Correct, that's where it's.
So we want to make sure that Peter understands it's Riachuelo up until Camino Real.
Camino Real.
And not Camino Real to the circle.
But that's what you already priced, right? These are the prices we're getting.
No, it goes
Well,
further.
that was zone 3.
I think it might be helpful, maybe if Peter could just get quotes to bring back in a couple weeks at our next meeting for just that mill and resurface of zone 1 only.
Correct. Someone
And
completely.
get a map of the streets that he's covering, because this map is.
I'll have you.
Yeah.
So that's basically just Riachuelo Lane, correct?
Yeah, inch overlay. Yeah.
From Camino Real to Puerto del Sol. Just that stretch.
Oh,
Yeah.
so not, okay, does it change names or passes Cambril?
Well, he's got seal coating on those streets in between.
Correct.
Oh, I see what you're saying, okay. Yeah.
So, that could still be part of the scope.
But those could be done, those seal coating could be done,
Okay.
those have already been CCTV, right?
Yeah. What we say is we want to do the zones that they are already CCTV.
Okay.
So we know that we are not putting the money where it goes, so we don't get any sinkhole, any repairs down the road. So at least zone 1 is fixed, it's gonna be fixed.
Yeah.
So make sure he gets the, do the seal coating or whatever we have to do for zone 1 completely.
All right. You got that, Peter?
So you want to get a quote for just doing the one inch mill resurface of Riachuelo Lane between Camriel and then the clubhouse?
Correct.
Yeah.
Just for that section, and take out all the paving, okay. Did you want us to just pick one of these contractors and use their, because you can look basically at their unit prices, and we can go with the cheaper of the two for the 1 1/4 inch mill resurface. That way we don't have to go back out and rebid and wait.
I guess
we have two bid
my
prices
question,
right there. One is.
sorry, my question would be, is there a danger of doing this work before we do the stormway work? Or should we do the stormwater work before we do this work?
Well, that area is not a lot more.
It wouldn't matter
Okay.
it wouldn't matter because as one of the board members highlighted, zone 1 repairs are mostly in green areas anyway.
All right. I just wanted to make sure we were clear on that, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we have a unit price from DNE and DMI for the mill and resurface, 1591 or 1680. So if you want to work, have us work with DNE to adjust all these quantities and see if they will still award that same unit price. If they would grant, they will still award that unit price for the benefit of the CDD, because as quantities typically get smaller, they will increase the price. But if they can hold this price, we can just, if you want to direct us to work with DNE, we can try that.
So I guess the question for the board is, do you want to approve a not to exceed for him to just proceed, or would you rather him revise those quantities and bring you back another proposal, given the smaller scope?
I will prefer to reevaluate the scope, just
Okay.
to have the exact number so we make a,
Okay.
right decision. That's my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I want to know what we're getting into.
Okay. All right, Peter, they want to go ahead and just have it all revised with the new scope, so if you could bring that back for us at the next meeting?
Will do.
And if you can add a map that has the streets that are actually gonna be done.
Yeah.
And the length.
Sure. Sure. We have a map that's attached with every one of the bids that has the street names and it's color coded. We'll make and it's in your agenda. So we'll make a similar map to that.
Right.
If this map is not clear, you want us to show it differently, we can.
Just as it has zone 3, we don't want to do zone 3.
Right, yeah.
I'll make a secondary map that's very clear for anybody that's looking at it. I will send it to Peter for him to verify everything on it, and then we can attach that.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Anything
Sounds
else
good.
for
Maybe
Peter?
do you have anything else for me?
No.
All right.
I have something for you.
All right, I'm going to drop off now.
Okay. It's not important. It's not important. I don't want to take any more time than we need.
All right, sounds like you're good to go, Peter.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jason. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of your day. Take care. Bye.
All right, the next item we have on our agenda this evening is the public hearing for the budget. So we'd like to take first a motion from the board to open that public hearing.
I make a motion to open the public hearing.
I second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Perfect, passes unanimously. The first item we have under here is we do have to pass a resolution first that reset the public hearing. As we made the board aware, notice wasn't made in time for that July 11th meeting, which is why we're holding the meeting this evening. Again, this is a public hearing, so we'll open it up for any members of the audience who'd like to provide comment. We will note this is simply for the movement of the hearing date and not the budget itself. So if anyone has comments on the movement of the budget date, we can take that now. Hearing none, we can return it back to the board for any questions you might have, or just a motion to approve that resolution.
Anybody have comments? No comments. I move to approve the resolution as stands.
Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Perfect. Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 opposed? Motion passes unanimously. The next resolution is Resolution 2023-07. This is the motion that approves your proposed fiscal year 2024 budget. A draft of that budget has been attached behind it. I will note that obviously it's kind of been a little more of the GMS format than what you've probably seen before. So we can certainly take any questions from the board on how it's formatted. But it is in large form what you saw at the last meeting. We made some adjustments to the, as I indicated, for the pipe and stormwater repair. We took Peter's 235 and basically used this year's leftover money and next year's to make sure we had the 235 allocated. We did go ahead and add some additional money. The security services, which is in Vera, is no longer there. We did add some money for gate access because there is going to be some costs for the new gate access system, as well as repairs. So that's been included. And then we've got all your other information. We did go ahead and, as we indicated prior, we took all that $300,000 excess and we're moving it to a capital reserve fund so that it's set aside, it's allocated. So if you want to make decisions, you've got those funds set aside. Kind of makes it easier to track. We always prefer our districts to have that separately set up. Again, there's no assessment increase. Again, as Jared and I have been kind of working through things, I think we both indicate that likely next year, as we get a little more behind ourselves, we're going to probably be recommending an assessment increase to you next year. I don't want to hit you off guard with that, but that's going to be something we're going to have to talk about as we go through and kind of get our hands on things. There's a lot of big projects going on out here. Other than that, we can obviously take any questions or comments from the board. Before we open it up for audience comments, I will note that when you have all those cases where we have contracts or accounts, we've tried to list those out so you can see exactly how we get to those budget amounts. We try to be as open and as transparent for you and your residents as possible. So with that, we can take any questions or comments from the board, or we can open it up for public comment.
Just first, about the field management, right?
Yep.
Obviously, we got attendance just for the beginning, as what we discussed from So if we budgeted for that amount, and then we get to a point that we say, that's it, no more attendance or attendance as needed, how that money, if it's allocated for something, how is gonna...
You bring up a great point. So I will note that this is just a budget.
Yeah.
It does in no way, your approval of this budget does not tie you to any specific account lines or anything. You have full flexibility as a board to rearrange monies throughout the year in any way that's legally allowed.
Gotcha.
So yeah, if that line decreases, I know we're going to talk about janitorial later, which is, I think, is a place that you guys could benefit from, and we can make some trade-offs on that attendant for the janitorial. So that's something that we can do later. Again, because we didn't have any of that information, we built the budget the way it is. It's probably going to be a real flexible document this year, and obviously next year we'll be able to dial it in super tight to get you something that kind of more accurately reflects the desires of the board at that time.
Do you have to separate the sheriff and security, or can you just have a security line?
That's what I was asking.
We can have just one security line. Again, my preference is always to do them separately. That way you have a little more transparency in where those things are going. But it's up to you. It's no worries.
Okay.
We can combine that.
No, that's fine with me. I was just asking. I was just curious.
Yeah.
And then,
I'm good with the way it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it is.
Jason, what is the carry forward balance that you have in there included?
So there are some additional funds you have from your in your capital. So that we're essentially allocating $258,000. That's what's used to balance the budget this year. That leaves you $172,000, and then that $172,000 plus whatever else you have left over last year is what rolls into your $300,000 capital. We do believe there's going to be some additional carry forward that we could utilize at some other point. Based on however the expenses go out through the remainder of the year. But again, I try to be as conservative as we can. We felt really comfortable presenting it so that you have the $300,000 set aside. Again, there may be some more, give or take, in the neighborhood of about $75,000 to $90,000. It really just depends on how the expenses go over the next year, over the next 2 months.
and on this year, so for the reserve that we talked about, so that one we need to talk about for the next year, to create reserve for each.
Yeah, that would typically be something we want to look at with your next year's budget.
Okay.
We've got one tool on the agenda later, which is the Reserve Advisor Study. That's a tool that you would use to do that. Plus combine that with your engineering, I think will give us a real good example of when we get to next year's budget planning, what we need to allocate on a yearly basis to cover the next 10 years as an example. That's normally a good time frame.
So now we have the 300,000 plus the 75 to $90,000.
There could be some additional there to utilize in addition to the 300, yes. Yeah. Again, I don't like to give exact numbers unless I feel real comfortable.
But that's not money we've earned yet.
Correct.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And, so pretty much, yeah, okay.
On the administrative, I see the actual up to July 31st, and then I see the budget proposal for the next year. It's a big difference. Engineer, attorney, management fee, liability. You want to provide any kind of
Sure.
feedback? Or
So I think that, the engineering and attorney, we tried to base those on historical. Obviously, there's been a whole lot of use of those in the last several months. We're hopeful that we can, bring a GMS in. Jarrett and I can hopefully help reduce some of those costs for the district. That's the goal. And obviously we can keep those as targets. But with both of those account lines, you can budget 0, you can budget 100,000. I mean, you're going to pay whatever they use. So we're just trying to look at historical.
Well, we're on that subject. I realized that the engineer made 17,000 last month. That to me is exuberant.
He
Did he
left,
do
right?
that much work?
Yeah.
Did he do that much work? Like, how do we know that that's what we owe? I mean, he normally makes anywhere from 2,000 to.
Well, I'll pull the invoice, but
6,000.
a lot of the documents and everything.
I
that
saw
you-
1 month is like 17,000 and change, and I'm like.
We'll look. There may have been some invoices that were also held, so we'll have to look at the timing. I know that when we first came on, they had a couple invoices that they just sent to us and told us, hey, when you guys start, pay our invoices. So I'll double check those.
I want to make sure we're not paying double.
Yeah, and with regard to the attorney line, I think 35 is definitely in line with the other CDDs that we work with as well. We work with GMS though. Absolutely. No, we will. I mean, I think that I can certainly stay below that number next year. There was a lot of transition work that was done here. But Jason can attest, we work with him about 25 other CDDs and we're under that number. So I think moving forward, we can reasonably stand to that number.
The big difference in the management fees line is just the way that we do it versus how your previous company did it. So your previous company would take everything, all of their fees were included in that management fees line. For ours, the management fees is your district management services. And then under your field management, there is a separate field management line. Our separate field management line also includes your attendant. So it's just a difference in the way that those two lines are shown company-wide. So it's exactly in line with the contracts that you guys approved.
Do you happen to know how much of that 51,000 for 57,000 for field management is actually for the attendant?
Yep, I can pull that up.
37 something.
Yeah, it's 37.
He charged 20.
It's $30 an hour. Yeah.
37,000. Okay.
Yeah, that's we pulled.
The field manager is 20,000.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And then liability, the insurance is essentially based on a proposal for that process. So we actually split. Yeah, I'll double check with our accountants. I'm not on that other insurance issue. Yeah.
what do you have on other current charges that is going to be 15,000 next year?
I think that's where she moved the other insurance line, to be frank with you. Because, that line typically isn't that. I'll verify that. So I'll verify. Again, I don't think the bottom line's not going to change, but what it looks like to me is that other current charges should be where because we typically separate our insurance. So you've got your insurance, your general liability, and then I'm imagining the other 15 is likely where that property liability should go. I'll check that. Yeah, your other current shouldn't be that high. Any Any other questions from the board before we open it up for public comment?
In the back, you have the repair and maintenance for pipe inlet and structure. That's of the 51 that you were talking before.
Correct.
All right, so it went down $40,000. Well, if we do this project, that line, okay.
Yeah.
I understand. And the chairs, we went over budget, of course. We kept using it because there is no gate. 15,000, that should be reasonable. That's including the increase that they had back in July.
Yeah.
So it went up to $80 an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, 66.32.
And it went up higher than that. It's up to, I think, almost 80 now.
79, 77. That's how much it went up. And last that I have is the contingency. It used to be $8,000 last year. Now it's $250. Contingency for what kind of item did you guys are basing that on?
So typically what we like to do is, we build a contingency into the budget for kind of unforeseen expenses, but we typically will charge those against the line that actually is applicable to. So it's more just kind of a general kind of catch-all if you go over. Because we transferred so much to your capital reserve, we reduced that to $250 because that's where a lot of the larger scale projects will come from, your capital reserve. Okay. Are we good to open it up for the audience? Okay. At this point, we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment on the budget. Obviously, we've got copies of the budget here for anybody who'd like to make comments. Kind of the same rules apply. If you please step to the podium and state your name and address and keep your comments on the budget for 3 minutes. Okay. Hearing none, we can return it back to the board for consideration of this resolution or any other questions you might have. Any questions?
I move to do a motion to consider the resolution for the budget.
I make that motion.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Mike.
Gotcha. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes unanimously. And I'll check on that liability and we'll make any changes to it before it's finalized. But I'm pretty confident that's where it was transitioned to. Beyond that, we have resolution, the next part of your 2023-08. This is the resolution that mechanically will levy those assessments on your property taxes. Attached to this will be the adopted budget that you just approved and the Excel spreadsheet which levies all those assessments out. I do have a copy of it here if anybody would like to look at it, but it is just a large Excel spreadsheet with all the assessments that you just approved on it. Again, we can take any questions or comments from the board, or we'll open it up for public comment on that one as well. All right. Okay, we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment on the imposition of special assessments. Any comments on that? Okay, hearing none, we'll return it back to the board for a motion to approve or any other questions you might have.
Make a motion to approve resolution 8, 2023.
I second the motion.
Perfect. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. And finally, to wrap up, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I made the motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Perfect. We'll get into the business section of our meeting tonight. The first item we have is we've got minutes from your May 9th as well as June 7th meeting. Those minutes are included as part of your agenda package. We can take any corrections or changes at this time or a motion to approve.
I have a correction for June 7th.
Sure. What you got?
Motion to close is just misspelling last name, myself. All the way at the bottom, just before the signature line.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we got you.
I think that's the only one I have.
And then on June 7, page 6, it says a motion by Mrs. Cordova.
Oh,
Mrs.
yep, we
Cordova.
got it. It's my white hand. We'll get it. That was the test. You guys passed. All right. Is there a motion to approve those as amended?
I motion to approve as amended.
Second the motion.
Perfect. Motion and a second. Yep. Yes?
Hold on. On May, Mr. Scott Clark wasn't present at that point for the meeting on page, for the May meeting. Mr. Clark wasn't here,
Yeah, you're correct. Yep.
and also Peter wasn't here.
Yeah, I got you. I'll make that change right
And then on page 3, the rest that states that he liked EMS at that point, he was Jack Worksman for 3152 via Parmalee.
What was that name one more time?
Jack Worksman,
Got it.
3152 via Parmalee.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Jack Worksman.
Got it.
See? Hi, Jack.
Hey guys.
All right. We've got all those changes. Is there a motion to approve as amended? All right. We do have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Beyond that, we've got 2 resolutions just kind of for more procedural items. So the first, we've added some accounting staff that are helping out with this district. So we wanted to have some additional folks just added as assistant secretary, assistant treasurer, and treasurer. So we've got Rich Hands, Darren Lossing Sr., who's actually the president of our company. He's moved back into Florida, so we're actually adding him onto all of our CDDs in case any of that's needed. And then Patty Powers is also helping with your accounting. So we can obviously take any changes or comments or a motion to approve that resolution.
I made the motion to accept resolution 2023-09.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Behind that, we just want another resolution. Again, this is just making sure that all those folks are get added to your bank account so they can make those transactions. So again, this is resolution 2023-10, and we can take questions or a motion to approve.
Motion to approve 2023-10.
I second the motion.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Behind that, we'll let Jared kind of run through these. These are the proposals we got for a company that provides janitorial services that we use at a lot of our districts.
Correct. So we reached out to a couple of vendors and met with them on site, and they were the only company that came back to us with an actual proposal. And then we asked for a follow-up and some changes to it, and they answered with that as well. So we have 2 options from them. Basically, you're looking at a 3-day-a-week or 5-day-a-week options. They do top to bottom cleaning. They do everything. We use them at a couple of their CDDs. That we have no issues with them. They're fairly reasonably priced for everything that they do. This includes everything from cobweb cleaning and any general cleaning. If we want extra services like the floor here needs to be steam cleaned and things like that, that would be additional cost through proposal basis that we would bring to you for approval. But they would just do all the standard cleaning stuff. They change up trash everywhere. I would be personally recommending the 5-day option, as this would help greatly throughout the week with the amount of use that we get here. And I believe that would also help to reduce the amount of site attendant from GMS side that would need to be here. It would be a much cheaper rate as well for that. So as of right now, without, if there's any questions or anything I can answer, but I would be recommending the 5-day option.
I was looking at that too, and I would like the 5 days, but since we'll still have the gate, and we need the attendant until that, I think, if, we can, the board put the 5 days, then we can start it in October, in the fiscal year, the 5-day, and then we cut the attendant, and then we use attendant as needed, or the security depends, the activities we get.
Yeah, and I do want to follow up. I did check with our owners. The as needed is a real challenge for us.
Gotcha.
Just schedule wise, because we need to make sure we have somebody here. So it's kind of hard if we do it as needed. I think if we reduced it down to maybe 1 day a week, if we just had an attendant on Saturdays, that something along those lines, more of a schedule lets us kind of have somebody here.
And that's something that I was talking with Jared before. So I know we added at the door digital. So if somebody is gonna rent this room, right, they usually set it up themselves, they do everything themselves. So I think if they rent it and they go to your office and do the paperwork, or do it online by email, whatever system you guys use, then that person should get the code, for that door and do whatever they're supposed to do. Because usually when the people rent this, the attendant is not here. It's only at the beginning, and then they have to close down and make sure everything is going.
Are you able to program this door remotely, so you don't have to come here to do it?
I can do that. So we have designated codes for certain staff. I know exactly who's coming in, who's a GMS person, if it's security, that type of thing. And we can give temporary codes with a certain lockout time frame. So if for some reason we could not be here to assist the party or things like that, there is options for that, for getting them in here. And this way we're keeping all tables and chairs in this room now. They won't be interfering with our security system or anything. It would just give them access to the room that they want.
Okay. Now, in the event that we had no attendant, let's just say, for example, where would our residents go to do the CUB business?
So, I mean, we're starting to handle a lot of that. I mean, we have got districts where there's no attendant on site. So we typically, in those cases, would charge a $5,000. It's a flat fee annually. And we have staff at our office that only do amenities. So we typically do that through either email, phone calls. They don't necessarily have to go to downtown to take care of that. We mail things out.
You would take payment that way too, or?
Oh, we typically just take it by check. We would take it by check, so they could either send check in. We don't really have
There's no electronic way to pay.
The
reason why I'm asking is because I mean, before we used to have to go, before the attendant was here, we used to have to go all the way to Celebration. And that was like a big hassle.
And then
So I just want to
money
make sure that residents can get stuff done and not have to drive all the way
I mean,
across town.
as an example, we manage Remington, which has 1,800 homes, and we do that all from our office in downtown, and no one really has to go. We can kind of do it all through mail, checks. There's a process to do that. I mean, it's definitely a much more convenient option for your residents to have an attendant here, just because it makes the process a little smoother, but obviously there's a cost to that.
I really haven't seen as much utilization of the attendant as I think we would have.
I think you've had a lot of utilization while we've been implementing the gate system.
Yeah,
Which is why I think that until we get that up and running, I think that would be a good time to start transitioning that over.
Yeah.
I agree.
Would we ever consider like 2 part-time, do like Saturday mornings, Sunday afternoons?
I'd have to see what schedule's available. I mean,
Doing less hours, you're saying, like 4 hours each day?
So instead of being just like all day Saturday, we offer like 8 to 11.
We have to hire somebody for that, and they have to be willing to work those hours.
So my question to you is, like, what would that accomplish? Like, what would be the benefit of that?
Just over day of the week, instead of having 2 full days.
No, what I'm saying, I know, but what would the attendant be doing during those hours, is what I'm asking.
They can be taking care of all the things that they were doing. I'm looking at reducing, right, but still having them available to the residents, to be here. And it was
just curious.
just another option, so just saying Saturday.
the reason I was kind of looking at Saturday, just as background, is when you look at the schedule of when the room is being booked, it's almost always Saturday. I mean, that tends to be the day that if I were to say you have an attendant for one day, that would be the day.
But that's another one. It's been only rented Saturdays or Sundays just because that's how it's been done for years. But now, let's say, for example, we implemented you guys, not having nobody here, but giving the codes to people. People can rent it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Are people allowed to rent it on other days now? Because before I remember saying that no one could rent it during the week. It was just Saturday and Sunday.
I think that was more of a policy of the management body and not your actual rules. I think your rules don't limit the days you can rent the facility.
Yeah, I don't see.
Because that's why I was surprised when
rules.
Sorry.
I don't see any limit in the rules. I also don't see a waiver, which I would recommend if you're gonna be renting this out.
Especially if there's no attendant on site, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. You'll see a license agreement that we did later on.
Now that you brought that up,
ROA.
I told Jason that we need to put a goal by September to redo the rules, do the public hearing, because if we keep, just waiting, then we're never gonna do it. So we need to do a goal of scheduling the public hearing for the rules of towing and amenities. So at least we can do the towing, that we need a warning system and all that, plus then the clubhouse rules as to doing the waiver and all that, so we can implement all those by October.
Are you saying redoing them completely, or are you saying just amending them?
I think whatever,
Making changes?
yeah, whatever changes, yeah, you guys see
Yeah,
that.
there's no additional cost, I mean, you
Do
can.
you guys
can
have
leave
like
it.
any like samples of other rules that other
Yes.
communities are using that maybe we can look at?
Absolutely.
To be honest with
Yeah,
you,
to
I
use
don't
as
know
a-
what's a good rule, what's a bad
Yeah.
rule. Some of the rules here I think are bad, but maybe they're
course.
necessary, I don't know.
Right, no, I think
So-
that did we distribute some rules?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
parking,
And total
parking.
examples, okay,
But not
we
the-
definitely have clubhouse, recreational, use.
So if we can do that, I agree with them, that we should try to implement it as soon as we can.
Well, I think timing wise, so there's a couple things to note when you do that process. So if we were to come back in September and just discuss the rules, that would be the time when you'd want to, we encourage you to take as much time as you need to really get those rules right, because the
Gotcha.
rulemaking process is a process.
Okay.
And if you're meeting every month, you typically can't complete that rule hearing until 2 months out, because there is a 30-day requirement. And you still have to have time to get that to the paper and advertise, which takes a lead time. So typically, it can't be done, you couldn't advertise it this month and do it next month,
Gotcha.
in most cases.
Okay.
So if we want to target that September meeting, we can try to limit the agenda to just those items, so the board might have sufficient time to really kind of dive into it.
Gotcha. And then the October meeting has to be then the date for the consideration.
Well, what you could do is you could have all the discussions you need at your next meeting. You could set a framework for the rules. Then you could approve setting the public hearing, and we would look at 2 meetings out, say November, for you to hold that public hearing to implement those rules.
You have to advertise notice of the public hearing
Yeah.
and it needs.
So that would be the fastest. That would be the fastest, you're saying, November 5th.
Likely, yeah. Yeah.
Talking about towing, who made the decision to not include the towing on the agenda for the CDD?
Again, I didn't get a request from any board member to add that specific item to the agenda.
So add towing for what?
Yeah.
Because you guys mentioned in the HOA that the towing is CDD, no HOA. That come to the next meeting, which is this one, and talk about the towing.
What are you talking? You're talking about sangria?
Well, we can certainly talk about towing
Yeah,
today.
yeah,
We can talk about it, it doesn't have to be on the agenda.
Public comment, it's open to any
Yeah.
topic at all.
Yeah.
During the public comment.
So in order to be added to the agenda, do we need to make a motion and how that works?
Well, I think it's best if we get through, we can cover that maybe under supervisor's request when we get to the end or closer, or at any point, but, we're on
Yeah.
kind of a janitorial now, so let's,
Correct.
If you'd like to talk about, we can certainly add it right now. But
absolutely.
in the future, if you want a separate item, just email Jason before he'll add it to the agenda.
okay. So on the janitorial, are you guys leaning towards the 5-day? And do we want to wait till October 1st to kind of start making that transition between?
Well, I think it doesn't matter waiting as long as we don't go over the total amount we're paying for the attendant. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I did the math. So basically, every day you have the attendant in a month is $960.
It's how much?
$960 for 1 day per month. So if for every Friday, it's $960 for the month. For every Saturday, it's that same price. For every Sunday, it's that price. So if you did the 5 days a week, that's almost $1,300. So the trade-off would be essentially, reducing the attendant down to 1 day. Would still keep you under the total cost.
I think that's fine. I think this place needs to be cleaned. I mean,
Yep.
that's one of the biggest complaints that we get.
And then too, moving forward, just a comment, recommending we can set a fee to cover these costs too, so
Yes.
that
Correct.
people, folks that are renting.
When they're
out
renting the
space,
room.
they can-
Yeah.
But I know in
Offset that
our,
cost.
I know in our rules now,
I
it
think there
says
is.
that attendance fee and security can be added to the.
It says it can be, there's not, it's a little loose on.
And it looks like there's a $25 user fee per hour,
Yeah.
Yes.
so.
And we need to take that into consideration that certain parties probably should be obliged to use security and attendant where other parties, that are, let's say, for example, a business
Right,
meeting,
right.
it's less likely to get out of control, but if you're having a birthday party for an adult, it's probably more likely to get out of control.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right, so
That's
there, we
something-
do have a
yeah.
form that we use for another CD, Over Oaks, and they have a provision in there that if it exceeds a certain number of people,
Yeah.
they need to
Good,
follow
yeah,
additional
yeah.
security protocol, and then we can leave it open to, so it's the discretion district staff or the board of supervisors, depending on the type of event, so. Okay.
So if I'm hearing the board correctly, you want to at least go proceed with the 5 days a week? Do you want to do that as quick as possible or wait till October 1st? I mean, again, based on the activity that I'm having with the gates right now, I'd like to still keep the attendant here at least for a little bit longer. But that's again up to you guys. We can be as flexible.
Yeah, because if we keep it the 3 days,
it's the $1 million question.
if we keep it the 3 days, we cannot start this now because it's going to be too much. Unless then we keep it Saturday and Sunday, drop 1 day.
I mean, that's probably something we could probably make happen immediately. Yeah.
I have faith that the gate will be operational by September 1st, I hope.
Yeah, I mean, it is still gonna take time by the time we get the agreement drafted and all of that with this vendor to get them up and running.
The agreement, for this vendor?
Yeah, to get it started, so. What we'll do is we'll time the reduction in the staff here with the start of this process.
That works.
So is there a motion from the board to proceed in that direction with 5-day-a-week cleaning and direction to your council to draft up a front-end document?
I make the motion.
What do you say?
Is there a second? All right, motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Behind that, we were asked to provide you a reserve study proposal, which we've gotten from reserve advisors. They do probably the vast majority of the reserve studies we do. You'll see in their proposal just some samples of kind of what you get. What they do is they come out, they will evaluate the entire project. They'll take a look at everything. They'll age it based on what they see, and then the usable lifespan, and then you allocate those costs out on an annual basis. So you'll get it's a tool that helps you kind of look at how much should we be saving every year for the infrastructure that we have.
And are they looking just at the amenities, or they're looking at streets and all that stuff also?
They're going to look at everything the CDD owns and put that into a sheet with all the different components for it.
So 5,000.
Yeah, the price for that was $5,000.
30 years reserves.
Now, I do caution folks that they do say it's a 30-year reserve study. I find the most value of that is going to be in your first 10 years. Really, I think as you look anything beyond that, it's really not a realistic projection. I mean, you've seen how costs have risen in the last 10 years, so beyond that, it's a little bit of a crapshoot. But it does give you.
They don't save any money if you do a 10-year projection.
No. That's the product they offer. But what it does is it gives you a tool. So as we talk about the budget next year, you can go, hey, this reserve study says we need to put X amount of money aside. We'll build that into the budget. And you've got backup as a board to how you got there. It's not just anybody's personal interpretation.
Do you know if we ever had a reserve study done in the past?
I could not locate one, and this company couldn't find one.
Did they have in the scope how long does it take to prepare that?
To prepare the study? Typically, they're done within, I'd say, 30 to 60 days. It really depends on, how quick we execute the contract, and they'll come out on site and do their work. But they'll also prepare typically a draft, so you guys can see it, provide any comments, and then they provide a final.
So this reserve is not really going to help this coming year's budget. It'll be implemented the following year.
Correct. I think it's a good tool to use. And again, if it's something you want to hold on until we get further into the year, you can. But I think, the sooner the better we get a handle on this, the sooner we can start preparing that process for next year.
So we start with the budget in July. Is that what we normally start? In June?
We start with the budget in March or April. And our goal, obviously, this year would be to bring you as much as we have as soon as we can. To really give you time to refine it and get an assessment. When we have an assessment increase proposed, it's always my goal to get it to those boards as quick as possible so that you have as much time as you need to massage that and get it to where you feel comfortable putting it in front of residents. Because when there is an assessment increase, we have to send out a mail notice to every resident in here, and we're going to have a packed house. So we want you to have as much time to be prepared for that as possible.
I would like to give you kudos in public because you have all the financials up to July 31st. It's only 15 days, so that's impressive.
Well, thank you. I'll pass that on to our accounting folks.
Thank you.
They worked pretty hard on this one.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Does the board want to proceed on this now, or?
I think, I don't know, I think, in my opinion, I think we should postpone it till we're ready to get the numbers for next year, because I'm just thinking the economy keeps flipping and flopping, and what if everything we get now, the numbers change by the time we get to the next year's budget? So, I don't know.
Well, what I can do is I would say, you know, you want to get this going probably January-ish,
Right.
in order to have a couple months so that you can do it on budget. So I'll table it till,
And you're the expert, I trust that you'll, get it as late as possible, that
But
we still
this-
have enough time to review it.
And then just in case this price will increase, do you
I,
know?
it's possible that it could,
It's not gonna increase by much.
but I wouldn't expect it to increase much. But what I'll ask him is I'll tell him that we're gonna target it for January.
Gotcha.
And I'll also go backwards and ask them how much time they need to complete it, and we'll work backwards from there, and I'll give you an update when I get an answer.
Thank you.
So you say you start when with the budget?
I mean, we typically start internally March or April, on our frame.
Fair enough.
I think we can touch that back in November, after hurricane season pretty much is almost over. So if God forbid something happens, then they don't have an excuse to say, oh, that wasn't done. We didn't check that out because it happens during the hurricane or anything like that, so.
No, it's perfect. Yeah, no worries on our end. The next item is just some replacement of roadway signage, and I know this is part of that. Yeah, no worries.
So with these, you just had some signages out here that was faded, messed up, that we could be replaced.
Here at the clubhouse.
This is roadway signs, right?
So that, yeah, this is just, there's some signage out here specifically at the clubhouse that are faded. They don't have the reflective engineering requirements on them anymore. They are not the right sizes that you need per the new standards. That's the biggest thing for us. I think this is just a free instant please approve this type of line item for safety. We've already installed truncated domes here, which we'll talk about in a second. So that first part of the process is done. This is really the second major item that you need for you. And this is all high-end reflective engineering style. Stop signs are 36 inches. Everything is up to the new codes and everything from there. And that will be total for just this total is for purchasing the items, not installing them, just so you're aware. And that's $1,091.60.
So there's 4 signs.
Correct. It's like 2 stop, 1 yield, 1 right enter. How's this in our budget? We have room for this, the budgets and.
Yeah.
I figured so if you were.
Yeah, I think it's part of those projections that we had for the remainder of the year.
Gotcha.
What is the number on the bottom of that same page?
Oh, those were for the truncated domes, which we already installed.
Oh, those are already done.
Yeah, those were run by the chairman under his authority, so those will be ratified later. Those were we saw those more as a critical emergency liability concern, so we wanted to address those first.
Okay, I was just wondering.
The signs, you know, are more of a, you know, obviously to bring them up to current code, plus I think it makes the facility look a lot more attractive. When you go out and look at those signs you have now.
I make a motion to approve the 4 signs for $1,091.60.
I second it.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Perfect. Passes unanimously. The next proposal, we've gone ahead and had council draft the agreement, but this is for IVR services. The chair reached out to several different companies, as I understand, but this one is for essentially $100 a month. This would work with your new gate system, so that the person would come up, they say they're going for public access, they'd have to go through the list to hit the public access button. It would ring this company and they would automatically open the gate, which is required for public access. Otherwise, you have to pay a lot more for somebody who's actually remotely talking to the person, so this is more of an automated system that works with the gate system. We did look at possibly just having a button they could push, but this system doesn't offer that. So this was the way to kind of work around that, and it's $100 a month. We did factor that into that line that goes with the gate system.
Now, how would that work? Are we required to put some type of signage saying, instructing that?
Right, yes.
And what is that
It
going to
needs to
look
be
like?
very clear, public access here, button, something like that. It needs to be clear.
So who decides how that looks like?
You all.
I mean, I think you're gonna have a directory in there of everyone's name.
Correct.
So under P, there'd be a public access button that anybody could push.
But what,
So it'll
I
be
think
like
what he's
service
saying,
access and directory.
so we need to put that on the front of the, like, search, yeah, like he said, search for public access on the directory.
I think we need to have some type of
Yeah.
sign there
So I
that
think
makes it,
there's
like a
we
little
can find
place.
it
some
needs to be
nice,
clear. We've had a specific issue.
That's what
in
I
the
want to do.
community.
I want to basically give us the wording that needs to be there. To be
No problem.
Good.
Yeah, it's going to be,
I guess that's-
for public access, click *99, something like that.
Yeah,
It
whatever.
needs to be very clear and conspicuous. If someone drove up, that they can see any member of the public can enter.
in this case, it's gonna be search public access on the directory.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna be a thing under the whole directory.
Okay,
I think they can create a code, right? They say
Yes.
that he can create a code just to search quicker, so
Yeah.
they can call in quicker.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason. So as the gate gets installed, part of what Jared and I have been talking about is essentially letting him get the system installed. And then we're gonna spend a couple weeks testing it, making sure we know how it works, because we want to communicate out to the residents properly.
Yeah.
And work on things like this to make sure that it's clear and everyone's clear, for the liability of the district to ensure public access. So that's one of the things we're gonna test and check. And if there's a code that's quicker, that, we put a plate that says for public access, hit code 99 as an example, then that's a quicker way to do it. But we'll work through those processes.
Have you seen that kind of system working in another community before?
Yeah.
Do they have any issues with just anybody gets in? Because what is the purpose to have a gate if we're just gonna give out the easy access to everybody?
Well, I mean, that's the nature of being a CDD. We get this question a lot. I mean, the roads are public access, so by law, we can't restrict access. There has to be some method.
yeah, so alternatives that CDDs work with.
No, I was gonna say, we have a property in Satellite Beach where they have a similar system. But you pull up and it says, to open the gate, hit code 6666 or whatever it is. And it's clear as day on the gate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just a function of how you
Right.
want to manage the access.
Exactly, so alternatives of that, you can have an attendant sitting there, but the cost goes up.
Yeah.
And so some CDDs say, well, we like the idea of an attendant there asking for an ID because it's more of a deterrent, from the public viewpoint. Okay, they may think I can't go unless I provide my ID, unless X, Y, Z.
No, this is definitely the most cost-effective way I think of doing it now. But now with AI, I think we can do it a little better later on, where maybe somebody can hit that directory and be like, "Welcome to Be a Soul, what can I do for you?" And say, you gotta say, I'm going to the clubhouse, public access, kind of have some sort of interaction
Right.
to let them in,
So
because
there's-
that's even a bigger discouragement.
Right, so there's no issue with an attendant or someone
Yeah.
automated stating, tell us where you're going, give us the address of where you're going, what brings you here, can we see a copy of your ID, X, Y, Z. So maybe that's an option moving forward.
Yeah, later
I
on.
did, okay, I did
I'm
want
not
to
saying
point out,
that. Yeah.
okay, and I do want to point out, as long as they agree to the terms of this agreement,
Right.
we would have the rights to terminate the agreement, so if it doesn't work
Yeah.
out, if it's, if residents aren't happy with it, we get that feedback, we have the option to terminate with 30-day notice to the contractor. I've also put in a blurb here about the public access requirements, and then all of the other, usual provisions that we include in the CDD agreements, including full indemnification, so if ever the CDD faces any liability, loss, damages, we can go back to the contractor and have them indemnify the CDD. If we're sued for some action as a result of this agreement, we have the right to request that they pay for our insurance as well. Okay, we also have an insurance requirement in here, an acknowledgement that, as part of the insurance, they are required to get policies and then list the CDD as an additional insured, so that we have backup insurance that we could utilize if the claim gets denied on our end. We have other things, they have to repair or reimburse the CDD for any damage that they cause. Their subcontractors are also bound to the terms of this agreement. We've got, I'll quickly go over this, because this is one of the first ones that you have.
So this vendor hasn't seen this contract yet?
They've not seen the full scope, correct?
Yeah, we haven't seen the full scope, but we haven't really had any issues with the
Okay.
agreements. The 4.
You guys never use this company.
I don't have experience.
Not this one directly, no. No. And again, most of our other districts kind of handle it a little differently, but you know, this is.
Do you have other companies that provide this service that you're aware of, that you worked with before? Or no?
Most of our districts didn't want to get into the extra cost of the phone line operation. They've done what I said, is they'll just put the code on there, on the gate. But this provides a little more, another layer that folks have to go through.
And so in that option, there's no charge. You're just paying for the system upfront.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you checked with the gate vendor if that's an option with this system, to just have a code?
I'm sure there is, but
Yeah, with that.
but again, what your attorney is saying is that what it has to be is when you pull up to the gate, it's going to say to gain access, press star 74.
Yeah, I got
Whatever
you.
the code is. I mean,
Okay, that's fine.
This one is to make it a little more, not difficult, just if the person wanted public access, they need to at least do the work and find it and click it and call, you know, like if you have an attendant asking you for your ID, the same way. Pretty much this is what it is.
I mean, ultimately, if we find out that, you know, there's a different way to do it, obviously
Yeah.
there's termination provisions in the
Correct.
contract, so we can obviously make a switch. Also, this one does, there is an option, they do a live agent, so if you like, if that public option becomes really popular and you want to make it, you know, more of the interactive features, there's options in here to upgrade to that live person. I think until we get, you know, the system in place and actually look at usage and how it's being used and what things, you know.
Okay.
I think this provides a good option for that public access for now, which is.
Doesn't seem very expensive either, so that's good.
Right.
Yes.
Pretty reasonable.
And this is just, there's no interaction, there's no recording of any information. It's
When
just-
they hit the public access button, it dials out.
And they go,
Yeah.
They're already programmed to hit the right number that opens the gate for you. Yeah. Is there a motion to approve?
So I do a motion to approve the agreement with AnswerNet Inc. for $100 a month.
Is there a second? Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I oppose, we just throwing away the $100 for nothing.
Motion
That wasn't the same kind of system that the board members, they were discussing back in May. I don't know what changed. I know it's cost effective because it's only $100, but we're spending all this money on the gates for $100 protection. I don't think it's a cost effective for the benefit, just in my opinion.
Do you have another option?
And that is a problem. We had in Vera, you
10,000.
guys.
10,000 a month?
It wasn't 10,000.
Yes, it was
It
10,000.
was 8,700 plus the 1,600 to monitor here.
All right,
You took it
9,000, sorry.
Back in April, you left the community wide open for 4 months, and now we're scrambling with nothing on the gates.
So what prevented before, you know, in Vera, nothing? The gates were open, everybody was hitting them, so it was the same. So we were paying for something that we were not getting.
Sorry
So
for
let's
the
move
breakage.
forward, you know, and let's work for the community, give them what they want, you know, and pretty much we're saving money because we have to have the public access. But we are making it in a way that is a little, you know, not difficult, like I said, but, you know, people need to get that public access in there. They need to find it.
We finished voting already?
Yeah, that's done.
Okay. Well, the motion passes.
Move on.
Move on. Behind that, we've presented you with a draft kind of meeting schedule for next fiscal year. So what we've done is we've kept it on the second Tuesday of every month at 5 o'clock here. Based on board discussions, I know it was not your intent to hold a meeting every month, but I think we wanted to go ahead and get them on the schedule. We could certainly cancel them at the board's needs based on the business that you have to conduct. So we've indicated it here is the second Tuesday of every month at 5. We can certainly make changes to that schedule as long as staff has availability.
I've already checked my schedule,
Okay.
no problem.
And like I know I asked you before, since we're, you know, I don't know, we got meetings here usually Thursdays, you know. I asked you before, I know you said the second Tuesday, the second Thursday is not good for your calendar,
Yeah.
but the first week of, you know, every month for Thursday, And then I'm looking also just to extend it a little bit like a 6, because, I want the residents to show up for the meeting. Some of them have reached out to me like, hey, a 5, Obviously, we are just continuing the meetings that we were already scheduled. So we're trying just to see if it's possible. I don't know if the board agree, just to have it maybe 6 or 6:30, just to give them a little more time to come and,
Completely up to you guys.
Yeah, I like the idea, but these meetings are way too long, and we won't get the work done at 6 o'clock we start. So my suggestion is to, kind of let residents know that they don't have to be here at 5. There's a lot of work that gets done, and maybe we can do the comments later in the meeting or something. Do that for later. I don't know.
Yeah, because they got 2 optional comments, public
If
comment.
they come here for comments, and I'm sure that people want to talk, and they have to wait till we're done with all the business. So, I don't know. That's my opinion.
¿Será posible quiero saber qué pasó con el punto 6F, la consideration or replacement of roadways signal?
No,
Eso ya se habló.
Esos
Ya se habló.
esos son signos.
¿Y qué pasó con la
Todavía, más abajo.
más abajo?
Sí.
So is there,
He was just asking about an item on the agenda that had nothing to do with what he thought it.
Yeah.
Clarify. So where are we now?
So on the schedule of the meeting, so we do it on
the first
So
Thursday
you
of
guys
every
came
month?
on Thursdays, right? You said
on the
The
first
second
week.
and fourth, Thursday I cannot do. I could likely accommodate the first Thursday.
What about council?
Just double check.
Now, what's he doing that, Jason? In our contract, how many meetings are we contracted for? I thought we had 9 on the contract. It's 9, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, what we did is we proposed you one every month, obviously anticipating the 9, but that gives you the flexibility. So if we get to December and you guys like, listen, it's holidays, we don't want a meeting, we would anticipate canceling at least 3 of those.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can confirm, I already have a meeting Thursday, the first week of the month on Thursday evening, that starts at 6. I can do Wednesday, I could do Tuesday or Monday, the first of the month.
What's up Tuesday? That works for everybody. That's fine.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So, Corey and Servando, that's good for you, those Tuesdays?
That's fine.
No problem.
Yeah, we did eliminate the 1 o'clock meetings based on the feedback we got from the last time that you guys weren't crazy about the 1 o'clocks.
Mike, Tuesday are good for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Jason, what's the exception for March 19th? Is that a holiday?
Actually, I already had a conflict that day just from some other meeting schedules, so I just moved it now so that we didn't have to worry about it.
I didn't know if it was a holiday.
No.
What day of the week is that?
It's still a Tuesday, it's just we rotated
Oh,
it to
it's
like the second Tuesday.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, we just rotated that day.
So, do we need a motion, right?
Yeah, it'd be a motion to approve the schedule.
Okay, so I do a motion to approve the schedule for 2024 meeting.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Finally, I did forward the board an item that we received a request from the HOA about utilizing the office here. So before we engaged in any of those conversations, we obviously wanted to bring that to the board. There would certainly be a whole lot of protections and agreements that we would need to put in place, as well as contemplate what costs that would be for the district. But before we got into that, obviously, we wanted to bring that to the board and get your discussion on that before we engaged in those conversations.
What are the cons?
Well, there's liability concerns. Obviously, they're likely going to be utilizing internet, maybe phones, so we'd have to build those costs. We try to build those costs into the contract so that the district's not incurring those costs. Mostly liability, time when they're accessing it, if they want a private office. We have some districts where they have these types of agreements. It's not a huge issue, but
So that way legal counsel can redact.
Yeah, can you just summarize what they're requesting? I'm sorry. Is it a permanent request to lease
the request
an
was to
office,
utilize the office here for HOA.
for HOA meetings?
No,
permanent?
just for like a staff member for the HOA to be staffed here.
Okay. Um,
On behalf of the Villasol board, I was informed that there is an office in the clubhouse that is not currently being used. The board wanted to know if this office could be available for leasing or granting the HOA board exclusive use for HOA business meetings or gatherings. The board would like to pay a reasonable monthly fee or take responsibility for the cleaning and maintenance of the office. Please let me know your thoughts.
So we can't grant them exclusive use of CDD property. Public property has to be open to the public. We could certainly enter into some type of use agreement, like you see in the agenda for the ROA to rent out a space for a day or something like that. But when you're talking about leasing CDD property, you got to go to your bond counsel because in tax law world, leases are considered private use. It's a private use of the space, and so there are tax ramifications with regard to your bond. You're only able to use 5% of bond-funded infrastructure, basically. So 5% of your bond, so back in 2018, you refinanced your bond, only 5% of that can be used for private use. Leasing is considered private use. Also, what goes against that 5% is any default. Doesn't look like you guys have a default on that 2018 bond, because I looked at that. But a lease would be considered a private use. You can't exceed 5% of that amount. So you have to go to your bond counsel to confirm what percent are you at to permit a lease.
You have to dumb it down a little bit for me. Like, what exactly does that mean? I just don't.
Yeah.
Don't
So
understand.
right now, I can't tell you that I can authorize you to enter into a lease agreement with the ROA for that space. At this time, I would say I would advise against doing that at this time until I can confirm with mine. But there's other options. From a legal perspective, we'd say, we just want something in writing, giving them permission, and for them to agree to indemnify the CDD, which means reimburse the CDD for any damage caused to the CDD property, to list the CDD as an additional insured on their insurance policy. And they're going to repair any damage. We would ask them to do like a pre-use inspection. So we walk the area, GMS walks the area before they use it. And then we'll walk the area after they use it so that we can confirm if there's been any damage or not. So we would.
So basically you're saying it would have to work kind of like with the meeting space. It's just on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right. It would be like,
Or
it would be
until you
a
figure out.
license or use agreement.
Yeah.
Or, you're right, we could certainly, I could contact bond counsel and have them look to see, is there a 5%, if we met that 5% private use of the total bond, to authorize us to go forward with a lease agreement. Okay, for the ROI.
Okay, let's do the homework on that then.
Yep.
We could take
So
it.
that's table.
You're gonna have a lawyer look at that to make sure.
Yep.
Okay, but in the meantime, if they want to use property, if they want to use CDD property, they can come to the board. You're going to see a license agreement in
The
here.
bag broke.
And it covers all of those things, indemnification, it waives any liability against the CDD. So there's ways that we can do it.
So how is that different with the meeting room? The HOA utilizes this and other people use this. Do they sign that license agreement too every time they rent it?
I mean, I would love that. From a legal perspective, I want them
When
to.
folks
I'm not
utilize
sure.
the room, there is typically an agreement that they sign
Okay.
when they use the room. The HOA, we kind of look at that sometimes if they're just meeting as a separate function. I mean, obviously residents are able to just come and sit here and talk and hang out because it is a public facility. But when you reserve the room, that's you're kind of getting use of this space.
Okay. Yeah, and we can put stipulations in the rules. So moving forward, if you want this to be an open space, you can open it up. Or if it sounds like it already is open to the public now, but if you want to restrict it, so if you want to use this space, you have to go through a room.
Right?
Does this room say it's open, wasn't it?
No, the space is locked.
Yeah, so I mean, going forward, yes, from a legal perspective, from this, on the CDD side, best case scenario is that anyone that uses this space is going to sign a waiver with that indemnification language, reimburses CDD for any damage, that type of thing.
So I think
You guys need to work together. You have to start, Yeah.
the information, you know, with the bond lawyer, and then just come
Okay,
back to
good.
us, you know, on the next meeting.
Absolutely.
You know,
I'm
or whenever
just
you
gonna-
have the information. You know,
Okay.
you know.
And I can also reach out to them to try to find out what kind of things they're looking for. So
Correct,
they would
better.
choose building per agreement.
Yeah, because it's better exactly
Yeah.
what they need.
I wanted to make sure there was at least some desire from the board to look at that type of agreement before we invested a lot of time into it.
Sounds
Yeah,
good, so we'll
good
table that.
All right, the next 4 items, actually the next 5 items we have are ratification items. I'll kind of go through what they are for the board's approval, and then you can ask individual questions or just approve them, ratify them as a slate. So the board previously at a prior meeting already approved the service agreement. This was just the execution of it, and I think there were some minor changes made on the KUA side before that agreement was approved.
Oh, yeah, some of the addresses were incorrect, so those are the type of revisions. They were non-substantive revisions that KUA accepted, so.
And we'll also, per the discussion earlier, I'll check on those Sangria streets.
Correct, it's Sangria and Menorca.
Okay.
So you got it on the right-hand side, the 4th
Okay.
street, because Sangria and Menorca are the streets are HOA. But
Okay.
they got lights, so we need to make sure.
If they already have lights, I'm assuming the CD.
I will verify all
Yeah.
this. Sometimes with the lighting in the community, we have the HOA owns the streets. Sometimes the payment of the lighting is designated to the CDD.
To the CBD.
So I will have it all verified.
Yeah.
It's maybe like the stormwater issue.
It's similar, yeah. So that's that agreement. Again, the board approved that already. There were just some minor changes made, so we wanted to bring it back to make it crystal clear and have you ratify it. The expenses that the chairman approved last month.
If council,
Go ahead, Michael.
if council is suggesting,
I suggest ratifying this service agreement for lighting
we
service
should go that way.
with
That's what we're paying
KUA.
them for.
Who's that?
That's not mine.
Is it Michael?
Oh,
No, who's that?
who's speaking, please? That's not mine. Oh.
Yeah, that's not my.
Okay, all right. So the next one is obviously we talked about the truncated domes earlier. So when you go out here, you'll see that there were pads replaced. Those are for ADA compliance. We felt like those were super high priority, so we had the chairman use that authority he has to approve some expenses outside of meetings to approve that. And I think those were $3,400 plus installation costs.
The domes,
Yes.
how much was the papers?
The pavers?
No favors.
Let me get to those.
Oh, the papers of the gate you're talking about.
Oh, no, we approved those.
But
The meeting.
there's something here that says
I think that-
paperwork in town. Oh, is this the?
Depression, the depression.
Yeah, well, I'll go over that when
Yeah,
we hit
yeah.
that. When we hit that one. So the next one was we did approve it. We had the chairman approve a temporary license agreement for use of the recreation area of the pool, and that was for the Villa Sol Day event that they had up here. We did have an attendant on site for that, and we made sure that council drafted up that agreement, and we attached all the rules and got full indemnification from them, as well as the insurance on that. The other item is obviously the prior, the board approved the Mateo pavers. So he went ahead and there were some minor changes. There were some things we had to work out in the contract after the board approved it. So we approved an additional $5,700, I think was above and beyond, was the second part.
Right, it was for the depression and for the concrete work. And then then the pavement didn't work, so, yeah.
So
And
what was
then
the
you
second
found
thing?
another company.
So when they did the asphalt patch repair, they just didn't do it to our specs, and then when we had a conversation about it, they told us that they can't do it the way we're asking for, and there was a misunderstanding, so they refunded us the money. We had another company here the next day, basically redid all the work, and so it should have been $2,600 roughly.
Thank you for that, by the way.
All right, so the first one was 7,800, and then the second one was 5,700.
Correct.
And did the engineer check that, the job after they finished and make sure that it was up to standard?
Yes. Yeah, we provided him photos throughout the whole time to try to save him from coming out, but our staff was also on site and inspected also.
On the exit and on the entrance, right?
And he was the one that, mentioned to use the same vendor for the pavement, for the pavement. And I asked the engineering, he's a paper guy, why you gonna give a pavement, job? But he said use the same vendor, so.
Yeah, but it ended up, the work got done properly and we saved the district some
Yeah.
money, so we were,
Thank you.
yeah, it took a lot of work. There was a
Yep.
lot of phone calls going on.
Oh, yeah.
We got it worked out. And then finally, we have the temporary easement access with the Villa Sol Residential Owners Association. There was some work going on with the townhomes, and so they asked if they could use some CDD property in order to store some equipment in order to complete that project. So again, we reached out to council, they drafted up a full agreement indemnifying the district, which was executed by all parties.
That was a lift that was in the parking lot
Yes.
one day.
Yeah, they put it in the wrong place, and as soon as we reached out, they had it moved. But yeah, I think originally they wanted to put it in the parking lot, and that was one of the things I discussed with them, that that equipment should not be stored here, so they use that other space.
That was the portable as well.
So we have all those agreements. You can choose to ratify them as a slate or take them individually if you want.
I make a motion to ratify them as a slate.
Is there a second?
I'll say it.
Perfect. Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. We can move on to district council.
Okay, great. All right, my turn. All right, so I have a few updates for you all. I'll just start with the memorandum that's included in your agenda. All right, so this is a memorandum regarding a new law change that impacts the ethics training for Board of Supervisors, and then we've also included updates, other legislative amendments that apply to CDDs and Board of Supervisors. So the most important is that starting on January 1st, each of you as Board of Supervisors are going to be required to complete 4 hours of ethics training, okay? The requirement, you're going to self-certify on your Form 1 that you have completed the 4 hours of ethics training. That Form 1 is due July 1st of every year, so we're recommending that you complete it by July 1st. I'll have more updates, or I'll have reminders for you once we get closer to that. But right now, the Florida Commission on Ethics website has free videos on there. They're 50-minute videos. The requirement...
Did you say free or three?
Free.
Free.
Sorry, I've got a retainer on. So they're free 50-minute videos. The commission has released a statement that you can watch 4 of those to complete the requirement, even though that comes out to like 3 hours and 20 minutes. They have to cover certain subjects, those 4 hours, so sunshine law, ethics law, public records law, certain aspects of Florida Constitution that relate to government officials. Folks like city councilmen, county commissioners there, you have to complete that. Now the legislature has broadened this requirement to CDD Board of Supervisors as well. Okay, so you could go on there.
Now, is this a one-time thing, or it's gonna be
It's going to be annually.
Every year.
Annually,
Yep.
that's
And
right.
We would encourage you that if you take them now, you're going to have to take them again starting in January, because it is an
That's
annual thing. So.
Yeah, so the law's technically effective July 1st, but the requirement's not until January 1st. So they're going by just regular calendar year.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's that requirement. You can reach out to me if you have any questions on that. Second page, other legislative updates. There was a change of law to the concealed carry requirements. There's no longer a permit and instructional course needed for concealed carrying of weapons in some instances. But we wanted to remind you that carrying firearms of any type to CDD board meetings are still prohibited under a separate statute section. The second one there, technology transparency, there was another change of law to that ethics section of Florida statutes. It prohibits any board of supervisors from communicating with the social media platform, such as like Facebook, to initiate a conversation, to initiate some type of agreement with them for any type of content moderation. So an example of that may be before November 2024, when we go to general election for these board of supervisor seats, you try to contact Facebook and offer to pay them $500 to take down negative comments about you on Facebook. Okay, that's now prohibited by law in Florida for board of supervisors, okay? Just keep that in mind.
Say that again?
So you're prohibited from contacting a social media platform, so like Facebook or LinkedIn, something like that.
Contacting the staff,
Any contacting them at all, making any request to them for some type of content removal or moderation. There are certain exceptions. If you're contacting them because someone's pretending to be you, you're saying, take down that comment, I didn't say it, there's an exception, there's certain exceptions to that. If you're trying to prohibit the commission of a crime or trying to prevent bodily harm or property damage, something like that, there's exceptions to that. So if you ever think that I feel as a, one of you all as board supervisors, if you feel that you need to contact a social media platform for some type of content moderation, just reach out to Jason or myself. We can just confirm for you that you fit within one of those exceptions so you don't have any issues.
And what law is this?
It's a revision to section 112, 23.
194.
Okay. No, actually, yeah, so it's chapter 112, which is the ethics chapter that applies to a government official. So specifically it's section 112.23, and this became effective as of July 1st. Okay, there's some exceptions I've included in the memo. I guess it's subsection 4 that has all their exceptions in there.
So that applies to any government official?
Florida.
I believe so, yeah. Well, right now, the Florida legislature has extended this to Board of Supervisors, so to CDDs. But I can't speak for, I don't know, like a water management district, they're considered a political subdivision of the state. I don't know if their board is subject to this. I can't really say without double checking.
On the concealed weapon, it says in a CDD meeting, what about CDD property?
That has to be between us. We need to put a sign, if we want to.
I can double check. I'd have to confirm for you.
There may be some technicalities with that. So.
Yeah. If that's something you
But if it's
want me to
public-
look into, I can do that.
Please.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. So the question is there a prohibition against firearms on CDD property in general? It might be a fast answer. There may be a rule that states that already, that the CDD, the prior CDD.
Yeah, I know that typically the rule I think you're addressing is specifically any kind of public meetings. I think is typically
Correct,
what I'm addressing.
but if even the previous board of the CD passed the rule, Florida state law will override that.
And I think you're saying, is it legal to prohibit it from CDD property? I think that's a good question.
That's a great
So I'll check on that. I don't want to misspeak without really.
Because now with this law, everybody can carry, not even somebody walking on CDD property with it.
Then you have to think about how do you enforce it? How do you
Correct.
want people to carry it?
Right, the CDD doesn't have police powers, so
Correct.
it's challenging, but if you'd like me to confirm, what specifically, what law prohibits it, no problem. Okay, and then the last one, it's a revision to section 287.05701. It's going to prohibit Board of Supervisors from requesting documentation or information about a vendor's social, political, or ideological interests or preferences, and then giving preference to that vendor based on those things, okay? So when we're considering pavement vendors, a question we can ask them, what political party do you prefer? Okay, so that would be something to do. So some of it's common sense, but these laws have been changed. So I just want to keep you apprised. We do this every year, and luckily, we spread the cost out between all of the CDDs so that no one is having to pay for one of the associates to listen to all of the legislative updates and search through that to see what is applicable to CDDs, okay? All right, so if you have any questions about those, you can reach out at any time, and I can try to get you answers, and I'll look on the weapons on CDD property as well. Okay.
And as far as the ethics training, obviously, we're going to still be in touch with you guys about it as well, because we've got a lot of staff that fall under that provision. I'm going to have to take the same training. So they're in the process of implementing it right now, so they haven't really got all the wheels on the car just yet.
Yeah.
So as we have all that information, we'll pass that along to you. So starting in January, you'll be fully prepared to know where to go, what you need to do.
Exactly.
And again, that affects all of us and all our CDDs, so there'll be some standard kind of recommendations we'll make to you.
And I've watched some of the videos already. I think they're helpful, so I think it's a good amendment because it's helpful and it might deter and prohibit some ethics violations, things of that nature. So, all right, other updates. So I was asked to investigate kind of the concept of privatizing the roadways, because there was the concern about wanting to do that as part of the conversation about the gate. And so I have reached out to your bond counsel, and she has confirmed that, so basically, if you wanted to privatize the roadways, you would have to redeem the bonds for the roads, so you'd have to pay off the bonds that were used to finance the roadways. But because the bonds also financed other infrastructure within the CDD, you would also have to pay off all of those bonds. So for example, if the CDD financed this amenity center, which I believe they did with bond funds, if you privatize the roads, then the public would be restricted from entering the amenity center. So she said, really, you'd have to analyze all of the infrastructure that was financed with the bond funds and determine how much of it has been paid down, and then they could come up basically with a number, and the CDD, that would be the number to pay off the bonds in order to privatize the roads, and in effect, you would have to privatize everything else. Okay, this could not be owned by the CDD. This would be, if you wanted to privatize it, is what I'm saying. You could pay off the bond. You could pay off the bond, and it could still be open. It could still be owned by the CDD, but it needs to be open to the public. Okay, so if you wanted the roads to go to a different entity, you could do that at that time as well. Okay, there is a cost to complete this analysis, and I think I've shared, I think, with the chairman, the memorandum from a different law firm, different bond counsel that had prepared the similar memorandum, because this is a question that comes up very often with CDDs, and if they own and they finance the roadways. So a different bond counsel had prepared that same memorandum that went through, okay, this is how much went to the roadways, this is how much went to the amenity center, this is how much is paid off, and so this is the bottom line, this is the number. So
it's going to be less than the total we owe, though, right?
well,
I mean,
unless there's
it'd be more than the
interest.
total we owe, is what I'm saying.
Oh, the total we owe. I think that's correct. But so you took out, $8 million or something, that came with interest. So just like any loan, if you're trying to pay off the loan, you'd be
But
paying
looking
for
at
the
the
interest.
financials on this meeting agenda, it says we owe like 1.875 million or something.
Right.
So it's not going to be more than that, right?
To redeem the bonds, which means pay them off, I can't guarantee that. We need a tax attorney to look at these, to look at the documents and determine what charges would be affiliated with redeeming the bonds, okay? Now, they can do that. Their tax attorney that would be completing that, his hourly rate is $500 an hour, okay? So we would want direction from the board if you want to do that. We've had other CDDs that have gone with a not to exceed. So a not to exceed $5,000. We want our bond and tax counsel's opinion about, redeeming the bonds. You could choose to do that. I can say that I've never had a CDD board go forward with that because the cost and some other hurdles that are affiliated with that. You'd have to find someone to basically give you a loan for that much, and then you go through the process too of who's now going to be responsible for owning and maintaining the property. So there are hurdles after you go through that process, okay? But I do want to give you an update that I have spoken to her, and it wouldn't just be redeeming the roads, redeeming the bonds that were financed the roads, it would be every other piece of infrastructure that was financed with the bonds too, because we have to guarantee that public access. Okay, so you can think about it, let it marinate, so yeah.
So even like bonds that have been paid off, you're saying that the new people have to pay that off again?
Okay,
Oh,
no,
they never-
so
That's
once the CDD pays off their bonds, then it's a different story. Then you're not having to go to your bond counsel and pay them to do a memorandum and go through all these hoops. Then it's just a matter of, once they're paid off, if it's the board's direction, we want to privatize those roads, then we go through those, steps to privatize them at that time.
And you don't have any guesstimate average about how many hours these attorneys spend on this? to give us like, I won't hold you to the number, I'm just thinking of a ballpark number.
I would say probably to get some incentives, you're looking at like at least 3,500 to 5,000.
Okay.
Okay, so it's out there, and we can, we can talk offline too, and if you have specific questions, I can go back, and this can just be an item that I kind of keep on my radar, and we continue bringing it up, and so, unless you have direction right now that you want to retain them.
I don't know, I think we might want to dialogue this at a future meeting.
Okay, all right, well, we'll keep it on the burner, in case. Okay, there was another question about the boat ramp. You had asked me to confirm whether that boat ramp was financed with the bonds. So it looks like you all took out you issued 2003 bonds. Those were refinanced in 2018. And I looked at the engineer's report that lays out the capital improvement plan. That's what the bond documents say the bond money can be used for, is everything in that capital improvement plan. The boat ramp, repairs to boat ramp, is listed there for $19,000 in the engineer's report. So if I had to guess, I would say probably that 2018 bond went to repairing some of the boat. I can't confirm that until I work with the district engineer, potentially GMS, to see if there was a requisition, which means, did we pay out for that boat ramp specifically? That's what we mean by requisition. Was there a request to pay for those boat ramp repairs? Okay. There is a duty in the bond documents to maintain the infrastructure that was financed with the bond, so that's also something to keep in mind.
Right, that brings me to my next question, which is, how long is that dock has to be sitting the way it is right now? Because I mean, it's a liability.
And I think that
more storms,
right.
it's gonna do something to somebody.
So,
I don't see the money to fix it. I don't see,
Yeah, because it's our property, is our liability, so I would recommend, so that we're compliant with the bond documents, that we need to see about what repairs do we need to make.
Can you get proposals as something like that?
Is it utilized? Is there, do folks
Well,
use
before
it?
it was utilized just to Fitch, then the CDD decided to put a no pitching, and then it started deteriorating. I know in 2019 they approved around 17,500 to do something there.
Okay.
So maybe that's the 19 that you're talking about. So
Okay, that may have been.
So that means that they're part of the bond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
unless they took it from O&M.
no. So
And
but
then we
yeah.
need to find out what it's going to cost to repair it, because that means we have to repair it.
So maybe as a first step, if GMS is willing, if you all wouldn't mind
We'll do
looking
some-
at
we'll do
the
some- we'll do some
requisition
digging, yeah.
and see if we can show really that bond fund went to the boat ramp. Because if it didn't, then we might have some other options.
And the other thing I had asked you is, because my understanding is that the previous board wanted to eliminate the dock altogether because they found it too costly.
Right.
And you said that even if it's in the bond, we can get rid of it? Is that correct?
Because we have to maintain it.
No, we have to maintain it, right?
If it was
Okay, so
financed
they wouldn't
with
be
the
able to
bond.
do that anyway back then when they thought of doing that.
And maybe that's why they did
It wasn't done.
at that time.
Gotcha.
So, but we can check to see if it.
Yeah, one question. So you said that if we have it, we need to maintain it, and then obviously operational for the public, right? So I know it used to be a street in there, so people can drive with the boat and, put their little boats in there, not the big ones, the
Right.
small ones. But we have kids playground in there. If we are needing to improve that, fix and maintain it, then I think that's gonna be a liability having the kids.
So that
near
playground
the
wasn't
street.
there before? That playground wasn't there before?
I don't remember.
It looks old. It looks
I
like
know it's old, well, not that.
You always been there.
It's always been there.
So there used to be gravel. I know when I moved there,
Yeah,
there used to
it
be a
was
gravel
gravel
road going
all
to the
the way
dock.
Okay,
And then-
well, actually, while we're on the topic of rules, the CDDs that I work with that have these boat ramps, they adopt rules for specific use of the
Yeah.
boat ramp, and
Yeah.
then there's also a cost to use the boat ramp. And one particular other CDD that we could use to offset some of the maintenance costs.
So that's good, and you have those
Keep that on the radar.
rules so we can read them?
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
actually
and
the
take,
same CDD as the other one I was trying to look through then, so,
Let me give you some background.
okay.
Somebody bought some tax deeds in the back.
Oh, okay,
What's the what?
tax deeds.
yeah,
Oh, tax
the 78.
In 2019, 2020. And actually, the HOA got money for those assessments.
Oh, okay, okay.
So there is somebody that owns that property. Because they thought that they can build something out there. So we cannot deny any access going through that.
Okay, so I'm
So-
glad you brought that up, so we may need to look
So,
at
yeah.
property appraiser's website and see what
And I looked at
property.
property appraiser because I heard that story before.
Okay,
The people that bought it actually sold it back to the county, so it's owned by the county now.
Because they
Okay.
cannot build anything.
Because
you know.
it's not developable
Yeah.
for what they wanted to do.
The county bought 70 acres. So that piece of water doesn't belong to the city. From that intersection all the way to the back of 2985 CSW Drive, that belongs to the county.
okay,
And the
All right.
county sold it to, I believe, it's somebody.
okay.
Correct.
Well, that's good background to know, especially when we're looking at the rules, so,
I send you what I have, and I will send you a lot of them.
But then if you go to the county, you
Yeah,
verify
it's
you
good to know where the
county.
situation is
Yeah.
now.
Now.
And also, I mean, if what Mr. Comas is saying is true, I don't know, where does that leave the CDD now? When they have given up property that's on the bonds, it makes no sense.
So how
We
we use
have to
all
look
that
at-
there?
Yeah, we need to sort that out, because
I'm not
that
sure.
sounds
There-
crazy.
there may have been a
right?
mistake at
Because
some
we used to
point.
own all that. We used
Okay.
to own all that. I don't
Because
know
we
how
have a storm drainage, we're supposed to maintain it. But
Okay.
it doesn't belong to us.
Okay, well, we'll look into it. I mean, we can get to the bottom of it. If there was a mistake made, we need to iron it out. So, we'll
So
look into
Jason,
it. So
can
I
you-
think Jason, if you don't mind, Jason, because I'm trying to keep the fees.
Yeah.
Yep,
So
so we have to find out if we even own
What's
the
going-
land at this point, I guess.
So we
And
can
what
have
happens
a
if we
vote,
don't?
you know, the vote dog
We're
and
gonna have to
find
take
whatever we
snapshot.
own.
We're
And
gonna-
if
we're gonna
Jared
have to
can
do
build,
something.
if Jared can build a map exactly, because sometimes the Osceola map is kind of all over the place, but it's better to say this is CDD, 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 CDD is better, you know.
Yeah, and the other thing is that the property appraiser doesn't always reflect the true owner.
Correct.
You know, a lot of times they just go off the plats and stuff, so we request to see the actual deeds, or I'll
Yes.
dig for deeds until we can find.
And the boat was closed because there was 2 storms. The first one yanked it out of the hook.
Ooh, okay,
When we tried to fix it, that we spent the $17,000, then it came last year. I don't know if you know what happened. Seminole County, after the last hurricane, Ian
okay,
opened the gates and all that water went to Orange. Orange did the same thing, opened the gates and all that water came to Osceola. And that little creek that goes back there, that's what made all the mess in the back. We stopped allowing the uses because there was a 13-foot gator in there. And there was the no fish signs because we have some fishes there that can eat the algae and we can keep the lakes clean. But we invest that money on the fishes, so that's why we put this no fishing sign. A lot of residents got mad, but we were protecting our property.
Yeah, I was talking about the boat dog, not the ponds. The ponds I understand.
okay. All right, so we've got some direction on that,
Yep.
so.
Yeah.
We'll follow up together.
So
And
now we
then,
go.
and then I do have one update I need to advise you about, is that GMS had identified an accounting issue from October of 2022 and brought it to my attention. So you'll see on my invoice that I've done some work on an accounting issue. I can't go into the details today, but I want to bring it to your attention. I'm happy to speak with you after the board meeting or another time about it, okay? But it's something that I'm continuing to look into, and we're hoping to bring a resolution to the issue, so, okay?
Thank you.
All right. Okay, that's all I have for you, unless you have any questions for me?
I mentioned the towing. That's probably something that you can help. Can the board decide if they want to move on the towing so that way it can be discussed now?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
That's the board's discretion.
I'm okay with it. You okay with it?
Yeah, we can do it.
Yeah.
We can request, because I know we got a few that
Sure,
want to talk.
absolutely.
So we can move it and then so they can, because I
Yep.
know he want to go.
Yeah,
So see,
okay, so we're gonna open up the
Chivas
public
y
comment.
Soros,
yeah.
Que vaya ella primero, que ahí está esperando que usted.
Ya que ella vaya primero. So we open it for the public.
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, my name is Administrator, I'm from 3145 Dale. I am a licensed social worker, and what I want to tell you is that I don't appreciate going to pick up my car and having my car towed. I can pay for myself, I can pay for it, I can't say that about anyone else. And, as a social worker, I have a moment that I have to go fast, when I go in and I don't have a car, it's kind of bad, okay? But for all the other people, you have elders here, I would really appreciate that if the 20 companies that come in, that they warn, if they don't have to take the car right away, that they warn people. And that's not what they're doing. What they're doing is, the guy's coming in, checking all the cars, and whatever he can take, he takes. No warning, no discussion. I'm going to tell you, it's going to be a problem then. Why? Because this guy's coming in at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. And what they do is they take the car and put it right in the rabbit, and they take it. With what happened with DeSantis and putting all these gun rules in place now, where people can freely have a gun, what do you think is going to happen? I've spoken to 4 or 5 people that have been really upset. Really. So I need, for the safety of our community, for the 20 company, to please not come in here and just take your car. I'm on 3145. 3 houses further up on 3149. They are an Airbnb. The guy has it as an Airbnb. The guy came in and told his Pullman's car, coming from Virginia. The car was fine, but he told it. We have to be mindful, because, these are places, I want the community, I want people to say, I want to come to my district. And this community is a beautiful community, but we're not getting the respect that we want. And that's not the thing. If you're coming in, and I'm gonna take it was my fault too. We didn't look, I had a sticker, my sticker had been expired and I didn't realize it. That's because I'm running all the time. But it's not fair for all these other people that are coming in, and they come in for our visiting. They come in for, they come for different reasons. People are here in Minnesota for different reasons. It's important for people to please, if the police stops us, they give us a warning. You need to do this right away, because if I catch you next time, I'm going to give you a summons. That's not what they do here. They just pop the car and it's gone. And for all these people, we have nurses here, we have social workers, we have all kinds of people that work here. We might even have some that's part of the police station. We don't really appreciate running out the door in a heavy car. Because it might just be my son, I might have an emergency with a member. And I am not going to be able to make it there, because it's my car, and they give me a warning. So it's important for people to be really conscious about what they're doing in our community, because you know what? We're here, and we want to beautify our community. We want to be together, but we also need to be considerate. And and we're getting left and right things that we need to pay. But how can we do that if they tow the car and then something? There's a lot of, we don't know people's situation. Everybody has a different situation in their home. And it's unfair for someone to come in and take your car, and you walk out the door, you think you're doing something, and you walk out the door and your car's not there. Now, the other day, I had somebody was told, and you know what? It was told, but it was told in what's it called? It was told because they did it wrong. You can't go be out there and find them, and I said, well, it is what it is. And they came in, sure enough, in the morning, it was fine. But you know what? It's because it's wrong. It's wrong. You can't. You're obstructing. If your car is parked in a place where people have to be coming down, then you know what? You should get your car towed. If you're obstructing somebody from coming out there, you're right, you should get towed. If you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, you should get towed. I understand. But if you are going to tow somebody that parks illegally, at least give us a warning. Because I know he knows where we live. Because he spoke to my husband. And it wasn't pretty. Him and the guy got into it. It was really bad. And the problem is that my husband is a carrier, and they're a carrier, and that person that came in from the towing company didn't and go. He was at it, he even threatened him and told him that he hasn't done it. So it's a problem. And it's going to become a problem eventually. It might not happen with my husband because I'm like always on top of it. It's going to happen.
All right. So just to recap, back when we restated the rules, we asked legal counsel if we can add the warnings because I believe in the warning system. Our rule doesn't permit that at the moment. For that reason, you don't have warnings because that's the rules that the previous was implemented. Now, I don't know you were here, but I requested to have the rules of the towing plus the rules of the amenity to be revised, but we need to do a public hearing, you know, that to do a meeting, this right here is a lot of money to do one meeting. So we're trying to make it where we can use one of the meetings coming up to do all those rules in one day. So we don't know, but that's something that we are working on it since we reinstate the towing. And before we reinstated, we advised, we told GMS to send out to the HOA, hey, send an email, tell everybody the towing starts this day, make sure the rules are there, so nobody get, caught off guard, so. Yeah.
And they might not be able to pay this money. When somebody takes your car, especially if they take it on Friday, it's not coming back till Monday.
Why not? That's not true.
No, it doesn't come back till Monday, because their work's out there.
I thought it was 24/7, no?
Yeah, that's what it says, right?
Isn't the towing company 24/7? I believe
They're
that.
pretty 24 hours a day.
Who did you speak to there?
Who you speak with?
Who's this girl? I don't know her name, to be honest.
And which location you went to?
Just take a name.
We went to the Main Street, 2021.
Main
So
Street?
Orlando, whoever is in Orlando. And another thing is that you have to have exactly the amount that, you have to have exactly the amount. If it's 150, you better have 150, because if you have $200, if you have 100 and 100, they don't need to change. That's just the way it is. And that, you don't do that because, again, you don't know what everybody's situation is.
No,
That's something that
and I appreciate you bringing this up to us, and I share your sentiments. I've had, even with the previous board, I was always complaining as to the towing practices. I don't personally like the rules. Those are the rules we inherited. I want to change them as soon as we can, and that's what we're trying to do. And I agree with you. I think that warnings is neighborly.
And again, I get it. When things have to be told, they got to be told. You know what? You did it. You did it.
But let me just tell you why it's such a widespread problem now is because the previous board would only call the tow truck on people that they wanted towed. And that's why a lot of people weren't getting towed. This board has decided we're not going to call the tow truck on anybody. Those are our neighbors. Why are we going to call the tow truck? So the tow truck company has total power to come in here whenever they want and enforce the rules. We don't want that responsibility. We don't want to be the one to have to make that phone call. And I'm going to tell you, in this community, you have a big subset of extremist owners on both ends. There's people that love the tow truck. They want everybody to get towed because they don't like people parking in the wrong areas. And there's other people that don't want any towing at all. And we have to kind of try to please everybody And I think, I agree with you that at some point we will have some rules, hopefully, that will allow warnings, that will eliminate some of the towing. Like one of the problems I have is that they can tow people, like if you tell your daughter to park on your driveway, block your driveway, they can tow you. Makes no sense to me. That's my driveway, you know?
At least now they're a little bit more considerate because I heard that the other toy company would go into your driveway and feed you.
Yeah.
You know, and that would be legal.
So, you know, in terms of the behavior of tow truck drivers in general, I think, you know, even with the previous company, it wasn't pleasant. And the reason why is because I think they hear all the different excuses from everybody and they kind of develop thick skin and they just kind of want to not deal with it. And I don't think it's appropriate, but I think it's the nature of the business. I don't care what tow truck company we go with. I think that's always going to be a problem because when people get towed, they get upset. I would get upset. I mean, they try to tow my father-in-law.
You can't say stuff like that. You can't say, I have a gun and I'm going to use it. You can't do that. Because you're a professional.
Yeah, but just keep in mind that we can't influence the practice of the tow truck company. That they have their policies, they do things their way.
And I get that, and you're right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But you also have to have, somebody has to keep the peace. So a little bit of the peace. I'm not going to say but a little bit, because you know, not everybody is okay with stuff like that. And again, you come back to a black and party, and somebody hears somebody messing with your car, what do you think is going to happen?
No, we
They
understand.
usually have lights and stuff, like, you know, it's a tow truck.
I wonder too, you know, I don't know if you have any experience with tow companies that are willing to issue a warning first.
Typically, the tow companies will not issue warnings. The communities we have where or warnings are issued, there is the district pays for a person. There's a security company that drives around. They put the warnings on. When they do the second warning is when they call the tow company personally to have them come out and tow the car.
But tow landers have that option.
Okay.
They have the option to give one warning.
That's the option. When we actually said since it's not on the rules, we cannot, because it's a sheet that it tells you
For an extra
automatic
expense, they
tow, sticker, and then you
Okay,
can.
if I can find a legal basis for doing it outside
Yeah.
of a rule amendment, do I have your authority to authorize that option? Do we know how much that charges?
No, it's nothing.
How much that was?
I think you just indicate, you would indicate their form.
They don't charge, but because I talked to Orlando earlier today because I was trying to prepare for the meeting too, and I know they've towed a ton of cars in the last few days, you know. And I was going to ask you, is there any way that either the board or even the membership can get like a report or see?
I'm working on getting that from them. There's an online portal that they use that for some reason the access code they gave me isn't working.
Because that's what he had told
I've been
me
asking him
before we signed up, that there was a way for.
I typically will get an email when they tow one with photos of the vehicle that was towed.
Okay.
But it's a separate email for every single one. But I'm asking them for a full.
So he said that the Tolando guy says that they can give a warning, but they don't want to give a warning like within a certain time frame. They give one and that's it. Once you've been warned, as long as they have something in the record that license plate's been warned, they're going to take the car for any other reason. So it's not like they're going to give a warning for each infraction, which is I think what a lot of the residents want is a warning before each infraction, and they won't do that. They said, like, for example, if you're blocking the sidewalk, they'll probably tow you. They're not even going to give you a warning for something like that. But let's say you're parking facing the wrong way, they might give you a warning one time. But every time after that, they will tow you.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm thinking my recommendation is probably to take that option if I can find a legal basis to do that outside of the rule hearing.
Okay.
Then if I have your authority on record, like a motion to, request that Tolando, provide a warning, we request that they provide a warning before towing.
And then they have this sheet that you saw there, so we need to then mark for whoever what is automatic tow, what is a sticker, because on the proposal they have it.
On
So
the
that's
form?
on the form.
Okay, the form that they're gonna.
Yeah, you're supposed to check off, but.
I have a question.
Okay.
What are they gonna do with this hole that they have on the back of the hotel?
That's something that is on
You
here.
know, we're not getting trash pickup.
Yeah.
It's been 2 weeks since we have.
Yeah, the trash had to be put up on the Otero area to be able to get it picked up.
They're not picking up trash, so I
No, they pick up, but you need to put the trash on the hotel.
You gotta put it in the front.
Yeah. So I do a motion for legal counsel to look at the towing and to see if we can do before any amendment of the rules.
Okay, right,
Uh,
authorizing me to authorize Tolando
Yeah.
to issue warnings prior to towing.
So authorize legal
Okay.
to talk to Toll
Okay.
Landing to issue the warnings.
Okay, to the extent it's permitted. by law.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mouthful. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. To direct counsel to look if there's room to negotiate to add a warning system into the current towing contract. All those in favor, please say aye.
Please.
Any opposed? Hold on one second. Okay, passes unanimously. If you want to recognize it.
¿Eso de qué?
Esto el mapa de nosotros vimos.
Pero
Okay, so I know what he wants to bring up. So he approached me.
te lo va a decir.
Yo lo voy a explicar para que usted no tenga que ver. So he approached me.
por favor. Read this, please.
He approached me a couple of weeks ago, and his concern, he lives on Villa Palma, and his concern was that why does Villa Palma have no parking and other streets that have similar width of the streets, they can park. And me and him actually went and we measured pretty much every street in this, because I couldn't believe it, because, I heard this right away, 50 feet, but when you come to think about it, the sidewalks are all different widths. So that 50 feet kind of moves like this, but the street is the same size, which doesn't affect parking in any way. And I believe only Camino Real South and Siesta View are the only two streets that are bigger than all the other streets. All the other streets are between 23 and 26 feet wide. So that, to me, in my opinion, is not compatible with people being able to park on both sides of the streets. So, I don't know where to start with this, because it seems like a big animal to
So
tackle.
here's what we did on that issue, because that was unclear from us. I know Corey.
I was gonna ask you how you came up with it.
Corey actually suggested that we did this, so I actually have a map. We asked our engineer to determine which roads would qualify as under 50-foot right-of-way. He provided a map, and that answer was Via Palma Lane, Florencia Drive, and the alleys east and west of Via Otero. Those were the ones with an under 50-foot right-of-way that met the definition of your rules. Because you're right, the 50-foot right-of-way is not the road.
It's a sidewalk.
It's back to sidewalk to back to sidewalk.
Correct. So, he brought that up, and I think it's a fair thing that, I don't know if we can, when we redo the rules, if that's something we can take into consideration. But, and me and him disagree on the fact that I think Villa Palma shouldn't have parking anyway. And the reason for that is that one side of Villa Palma is all garages and driveways. And in the total street, there's only like 4 spots that you could actually park legally. So it's unfair if 4 people are fighting for those spots all the time. So I don't know, to me, in my opinion, I wouldn't want parking in Villa Palma anyway. But then again, the other streets that are similar sizes to Villa Palma, we need to either consider making them one-way and parking on one side, or making them no parking also, because either way, it's small, and when 2 people park side by side, no emergency vehicles getting through.
I mean, I think in cases like this where you have certain roads that have different rules than other roads, I think it would be our recommendation that, again, have your engineer do a map that's color-coded, clear, in the rules, this is what it looks like.
Listing out,
The
each
rules,
street
right.
and what the rule is clearly for each street. Regarding changing the right-of-way, which direction, one-way, et cetera, you gotta go back to the county for something like that.
To set the directions, just change directions, the county has to be involved?
Yeah, if you wanna make a 2-way road or one-way road, you gotta go back to.
There's also FDOT regulations, there's all kinds of things that affect liability. If you don't have the road properly marked, I mean, there's a lot more that goes into it.
We don't have those powers, we
So
just
that
have.
brings me to the other thing, is that we've implemented these rules, and we brought these streets up on the FAQ, but a lot of these streets have no signs. Like Villa Palma has only signs that not parking on one side, but the other side has no signs.
Okay, well, we can add signage, that's something that the CD board can do, obviously there's a cost to that.
Correct, but before we start spending on signs, we need to figure this out as to what we're gonna do.
Absolutely, And so what I would say is, options for today, you can rescind the rules right now. You can say, I'm gonna pause the rules right now.
You're gonna pause
until we hear-
enforcement.
Pause, yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Pause enforcement until we can iron out the rules and go through the real hearing and pass a rule that there's no ambiguity. So we could do that, or, the board has a discretion at the rule hearing to change how we construct the rules. So if you don't want parking on roads, you can do that. If you want parking, you have the authority to choose your parking and towing rules.
So this will be the November meeting we're talking about now?
Well, I think we anticipate is your September meeting is when we'll kind of do a
November
focused meeting on amenity rules and parking rules. That'll give you, I think, sufficient time. We'll try to limit the agenda to just those items.
So we'll bring back the parking rules at the next agenda, and then this board can tweak them how you want. And then at that meeting, you have to set a public hearing.
Which would
Jason's
likely
gonna
be
know.
November.
Okay. And then at that hearing, you hear public comment again, they say, oh, I saw your proposed rules, I want parking on my road. You all hear their comment, and then you make a decision and adopt them formally.
Okay. So are we gonna stop enforcement? What are we gonna do?
I am with the enforcement. We are not asking our residents to do anything outside of what the Florida statute rules are. And council looked over everything. There's nothing that we're not asking them to do that's outside of what the Florida statutes are. Right? So we're actually,
Well, it's the parking on certain streets that is the issue, not everything else, so.
but you gotta remember, we're a quasi-government, right? We're a municipality for this community, and we also have liability that when a fire truck can't get down via Poma because they're parked on both sides, that's our liability as well, right? And now the EMS can't get down some of those streets. We have a liability in that.
He is right, that we probably would be named if there was an issue and an ambulance couldn't get through. There would be some PI attorney saying, oh, the CDD had the ability to make parking and towing rules, and they didn't. And so we're gonna name them.
So then we're gonna leave them enforced until.
That's my opinion.
But you did, I mean, the board
Mr.
just
Cobos, you're
formally
the alternate
acknowledged.
rule, so give us your opinion.
Don't worry, I'm gonna give you the whole book on the opinion.
And then I would just want to say too, for the record, the board just decided today that they want to implement a warning. So we're going to do everything we can to implement that warning with our current towing company that we have. And then, the board also has another option. We can look at other tow companies if we want to.
But is it
they
gonna make
did
a
give
difference,
comment,
is the
they're
question.
looking at the
Because
warning.
Tax Cohen was doing the same thing, except that it was selected.
I do like the option of the warning that they're able to
No,
offer.
I love the option of the warning, yeah.
But,
Yeah, I love it.
So,
He's gonna enlighten us now.
okay.
I'm gonna give you the whole book. The previous board, the one that you keep mentioning, towed away 141 vehicles, and none of them had any situation with the towing, especially on the Alabama. Because why? On the left-hand side, which is the back alley and the garage of Riachuelo, there's no parking sign. On the right-hand side, which is Via Alabama, where Mr. Obando lives, there is only one car garage. So they don't have any space to park. And then they have to park on another street and over. The previous board painted a corner red, but then we decided to leave it as a parking spot. No emergency vehicle or no garbage can truck had any situation to get in there. Only once, because there was one resident from Villatero that left a big yellow truck that was impeding the traffic of the garbage can. Besides that, there was no situation, no problem of anybody parking in front of the house on Via Palma Lane. The only problem that I have is few of your supporters were notified and they were parking their vehicles along Via Otero Drive, but not the rest of the residents. Because I got people that I know that live there that they say, oh, we were never notified by anybody, or we are renters, we don't know what's going on about the parking, so our 2 vehicles got towed away. And that was the same day when 10 vehicles got towed in one day when there was a HOA meeting here. They had a flatbed and a regular tow truck with 5 vehicles included. So it was a mass towing authorized by either you or somebody else, because they were here for a couple of hours.
They done?
My opinion is you should let the people in the apartment lane park in front of their houses.
Well,
so that's
the point we're making, is that the rules are interpreted by the engineer as those streets you can't park in. So you guys created rules and then enforced them selectively, which is what we're saying. The problem people are having is that you created rules that you weren't enforcing. And now we're forced to enforce it to make it right for everybody, because it's not fair that this street can't park and that street can, when your rules say neither of them can park. Because Florencia has been parking forever on both sides,
Yes.
and your rules say they can't.
Let me enlighten you. The previous board didn't implement and didn't create those rules. They were left here by the developer.
That was in 2021,
It was,
the resolution you got.
yes, the
So why you
resolution.
pass it, so why you pass it?
You had the chance to change it,
Then,
right?
no, we didn't, the only thing that we didn't enforce was the towing on Via Palma, because the 50 feet right away, it was a, you know, a big blind side for the previous board. We didn't enforce that part.
You didn't enforce Florencia either.
The same way, because that was the 50 right away.
But the rules say that you can't park there. That's what the engineer said, right? Didn't you get the engineers
Well,
to
I
interpret the
mean, we
rules?
took the rules, which say you can't park on a street that has less than 50 foot right of way, and the engineer said, these are the streets, and gave us a map that we
And
prepared.
then can we select it, say, I gotta enforce this rule, and then this one no, and this one yes? Or we have to do all of them, and none,
I
right?
think we have to either enforce them all or enforce none of them.
That's my point.
Exactly. I
So
mean,
that's not
once
what's been done
you
here
can
for the previous
change them.
years.
Yeah, correct.
You can change them.
Is there any way that we out there can go one way instead of going?
That's something that I
I
brought
talked
in
to
the
them
last
about
meeting.
that. They said that the county has to get involved, that's what she said.
We'll have to get with the
And
engineer.
Department of Transportation, you have to go through approval processes. Yeah, governmental approval.
And another
Now,
processes.
if the streets were private, that wouldn't be the case though, right?
I think
It
so.
still might be.
You still have to go through all those steps with the county?
That's right.
Oh, yeah, that's what I brought in the last meeting, because,
It is
yeah.
so dangerous. I had two encounters with two people that when I
So,
come in, they just.
so you live on Villa Otero. How do you feel if there was no parking on Villa Otero?
I'll be happy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. That's my point.
So, another one, that's another one that, for later, because I'm concerned on them, on Villa Palma, that they don't have parking, they have one garage, it's small, so, they have the flat behind the green area. That's something that the engineering, if we have the money, of course, look into it and see if we can build a parking lot right there,
We've had some districts that have built overflow parking.
I think Villa Palma, in all fairness,
Yeah.
and Villa Otero too, I mean, those townhouses
Yeah.
can afford to have a parking lot, they need them, not to afford, but they need a parking lot
Yeah.
for guests and for them, to have an overflow.
I will say from a rules perspective, that creates another set of rules that you have to enforce, because people would be parking vehicles there permanently.
Oh,
So
no,
again, I
correct,
mean, just,
yeah.
it creates another set of rules.
No, I got you, I got
So
you.
just,
¿Usted entendió, señor Orlando? ¿Quiere que le traduzca? So, básicamente saqué a lucir lo que medimos las calles y todo eso y la perspectiva que usted me dio, pero ellos van a revisar qué se puede hacer, porque ellos dicen que para cambiar la dirección de las casas puede hacer que eso sea un proyecto más grande, que hay que involucrar el condado, el departamento de transportación, cambiar las vías es más difícil. Entonces, nosotros vamos en septiembre a repasar las reglas, a ver cómo las vamos a cambiar y vamos a hacer una reunión quizás, yo creo que para noviembre, para poner nuevas reglas.
Pero mientras tanto, entonces nosotros no podemos seguir cualquier ley.
Bueno, se acaba de sacar a lucir aquí que si queremos cancelar las reglas por ahora, pero la Junta no está de acuerdo, no se va a poder cancelar.
Y de salón de parking, que posiblemente se va a verificar el overflow en la parte de atrás de ustedes, el área verde. Eso es un proyecto para ver qué se puede hacer para que ustedes tengan parking. Yeah.
Porque nosotros no podemos ni parquear en 10 minutos. Porque yo no sé por qué en otros sitios usted parquea y puede estar el carro una hora, una cosa visitante o algo. Ahí no se puede, porque cada media hora está parando la señora grúa levantando carros. No entiendo por qué tanto.
He's just complaining. He says that the tow truck comes very often, and sometimes you can't even stop for 10 minutes in front of your house. Pero eso no tenemos control, porque las reglas o se enforzan o no se enforzan, y eso es el único poder que tenemos en este momento, ¿me entiendes? Y no se pueden dejar de enforzar porque la Junta no está de acuerdo. Pero yo lo que le prometo es que vamos a tratar de mover esto lo más rápido que se pueda y ver que saquemos una...
¿Por qué no está de acuerdo la Junta?
¿Cómo?
¿Por qué no está de acuerdo?
Yo no sé, pregúntales.
¿Quién?
Ellos son tres, yo soy uno.
No,
No, él no está de acuerdo tampoco. He's not with you.
No, listen, tenemos que avanzar el meeting porque se nos va. No, porque no se puede.
No me entendió. Toda la comunidad.
Porque no se puede parar el COVID. Porque si no se vuelve otra vez a lo que teníamos con los sidewalks llenos de carros y todo.
Eso es todo. Pero bueno, ya tenemos que seguir porque nos va a llegar la noche aquí, por favor.
Pero septiembre tenemos el próximo.
Gracias, señora.
Muy perjudicado.
Let's move on.
Muy perjudicado.
Let's go.
So the next is
Before we move on, can you just find out what the requirements of FDOT is for space for emergency vehicles? And that may help us make that decision when it comes to roads. What do they recommend for both sides parking? See if there's any guidelines FDOT puts out?
I got
Do you want, I think that GMS would be able to
Yeah.
answer that?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
if you need assistance with that, I'm happy to step in.
Okay.
Just
I'm just saying that-
probably,
It's a great idea.
That'll
Yeah.
help us
I think
figure out
yeah,
what
it's a
we
great
should be
idea.
doing as a municipality.
Okay,
and I
so-
think if you all can think about what you're envisioning by the next board meeting,
Yeah.
I can see how we can get revisions.
I already know what I want.
Well, and to that point, both on the amenities and the parking, you don't necessarily need to come up with a specific rule. If you just send us some general guidelines, we'd like it to be this. Time frame, well, the amenity center should be 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Whatever the general guidelines, we can build your rules any way you want.
Okay.
That'll save you the time from having to go through line by line. The next item I have is the action items list, and I'll go through it quickly. Obviously, Jared's kind of the star of this meeting, so I'll kind of quickly go through some of these that he's not going to cover. Obviously, we covered the gate system already, the road issue he's got, pavers. I know we're still working on getting some AC quotes. Yeah,
AC.
to replace the AC unit.
So right now you have the old air conditioner in there, and you can definitely wait until it's dead to replace it. My suggestion would be it's not energy efficient to do that. I would replace it.
No, I agree.
If you're willing.
And the board approved it not to exceed of 8,000, so
Correct.
we're still working on it.
Okay.
That's
I know he's got camera access, he'll cover, the pool equipment, we're kind of working on getting that, I think the gas situation lined up. He's got the spectrum bill, we removed the non-functional gym equipment, he'll cover the hedge issues. We know that there was some waste management stuff that was stripped on the roads, we're still trying to see if there's anything we can do. I've still got an email contact from the insurance company on that, so as soon as we get the proposals, we'll get that to them to see if they'll cover it. I know he's working on the spikes as well as the roof, and we just covered the tow vendor. So again, if you have specific questions on those, you can let us know, and I know Jared's well versed on all of those.
So, yeah, the spikes, what's gonna happen with that?
So right now we have proposals to have them pulled up and then asphalt installed there. The problem with them is because you have these aftermarket systems that are not flush with the concrete, when people hit it, it creates friction. That creates these separations, that's where you get these depressions and everything like that. There's bolts missing from the infrastructure there, so you have spikes that will be stuck in the down position or things of this nature. I understand the intent for having them, but I just don't think that they're necessary. I would recommend pulling them, filling in asphalt, and then doing asphalt speed bumps on the opposite side of the gate as your turn.
You're saying on the opposite side, saying on the
Outside.
inside.
So where the stop signs are, if I'm leaving, heading towards the Walgreens there, 5 feet.
Put them outside. Okay, yeah, okay, that's
You
good.
would hit the speed bump right before the gate, and then right after the gate, after it goes to its opening phase, there would be another speed bump after that.
No,
And
and
to not interfere with
I
the
even
gate.
think you could do the 2 speed bumps on the entry side too, because a lot of the people that blow the gate is because they're able to catch speed. If you got speed bumps, they're gonna be less likely to hit that gate.
So that's,
So it'd be nice to do double speed bumps on every entry.
We've got it on the list, yeah.
I'm sorry.
I like you guys.
So you look in, and then from there, you guys are gonna send it to Inframark, correct? Whatever you guys find, and then deal with that.
Yep.
Now, the only thing that I noticed that has changed is you put all those sticks in between the two lanes.
For the moment, yes.
He's got that on his
Oh,
report.
so what's gonna be the end point on that? Because I'm just afraid that there's gonna be cars going in that side, and then everyone's gonna have to back out to let them out, right? Because how are they gonna get out?
So right now you have a decision to make. Do you want people going into the right lane where they can press a button and get in anyways? Or do you want to prevent them from going over or avoiding the speed bumps and cutting people off and getting accidents?
I mean, it's, yeah.
This at least prevents them, they have to hit a speed bump, so it slows them down somewhat.
And they have the sign before anyway.
This is my recommendation
Yeah.
because they have plenty of vision on both sides. It clearly says this is what you need to do. If we need to add Spanish signs onto that same side, we can do that. I have no issue with that. But when we were working at that gatehouse trying to get the internet set up there, people were cutting each other off. They're going over. They're avoiding. They don't care.
No, it's been happening a lot, I agree. But again, there's no speed bumps there now, so it's easy for them to jet in front of somebody. But in the long run, I mean, you already did those sticks, we gotta live with those until they start damaging them, because eventually someone's gonna drive their car through them. But I'm thinking, can't we do like a long speed bump, asphalt speed bump in between, so this way people can still get out, but they gotta go slowly and go out, rather than speed out of there?
We can look at everything.
We'll get with that.
Thank you, that's all.
All right, I'll go through the check register quickly. In your general fund, we've got checks 5605 through 5706 for $299,503.21. A summary of those invoices follows. We can certainly take any questions you might have, and I'm going to get some clarification on those engineering invoices for last month based on the comments. We can take any questions or a motion to approve.
The first page, what is in your website, SB88 compliance, is that monthly or that's a year, that for 388?
Oh, so that's I believe that's an annual. So on your website, you have to have, this was a part of some lawsuits that happened a few years ago. It's the ADA certification for those with visual disabilities. Is there a motion to approve?
One last question.
Yep.
The $34,000 that was paid to Inframark, can you share more information about exactly why so much?
I believe those, all of those were their reimbursement fees in accordance with their contract. So we held everything until the end, and it was all in line with that settlement agreement we signed. The district signed with them.
So they got the 34,000 plus the extra 10,000 for that month, which is they only work 9 days, and then the 16,000 extra.
The 16,000 includes those months. That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not
Maybe, yeah, maybe we can look into, just pull the.
I'll double check. We'll double check all that.
Okay, it may have been that they billed the prior
Oh, wait,
one.
the
Maybe
60,000 is the last month, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They might have been.
Yep.
They do 4
No, I
months
think
at one
it's-
time, looks like.
4 months, okay,
Yeah.
so that means they probably transferred.
Yeah, this
the
covers
system.
April and May and reimbursable expenses and the termination
Okay.
settlement.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so I go ahead.
Check the numbers, because they're supposed to only have 2 of the $4,000 charges on there, because the other 2 months was when we canceled.
Well, they do. They have April and May, and then there was the settlement payment of the
Right, but
16,000.
then they also have the 16,000, but the settlement included those months, correct?
I can't, I have,
Yeah,
I have.
We cancel.
It wasn't in addition to, no.
Yeah, well,
No,
these
no,
were,
they-
these were all cut in advance of us even having the system, so you can see these checks were cut through May 31st, so we'll have to double check those.
Yeah, double check what those payments are, because I know that we double paid in 2 months, but I remember clearly asking if that $16,000 settlement included the 2 months that they were gonna help with the transition, and I was told yes at the time, so
We'll double check that.
they shouldn't be charging extra on that.
Yeah, let's look.
I
to
know
see
in
what
total
they're-
they're gonna get something like that, like 10, 12, or 16,000.
That was 16,000, but,
It was 16.
Yeah.
no, the number's right at the bottom, but I don't think they were entitled to all these extra payments that are here.
We'll verify.
the 31 for King Access, that's just half of the gate, right?
Correct, that was their
It's
deposit.
still
Yep.
missing the other half. This website rebuild, is that a new policy that the website is adding?
Which one is that?
It's almost page, I'm sorry, number 8, the last amount for 1750.
Yeah, we had to transition your old website under our thing to kind of make it a little more user friendly.
Update.
Yeah.
I don't have any more questions.
Anyone else?
Is there a motion to approve?
I'm just waiting for you guys just to
I'm
make
not
sure.
motion, I'm fine, let's approve it.
Okay.
Motion to approve the check register for April 1st to April 30th.
I second the motion.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. The other two items we've got, again, I want to let you guys get to Jared. He's got some important stuff to go over. So on your balance sheet and income statement, there's no action from the board. We have collected 100% of our assessments, and those financials are there for your review, and I'll obviously check on those items we've brought up tonight. We've also included all the sheriff officer patrols that we've received, so you can see their activity. And with that, we'll turn it over to Jared.
First, we'll start with the easy stuff. So some of the landscape enhancements, we had talked about having to remove the viburnum hedges up towards the front gate there just because they were blocking the sight line. You're only allowed up to 18 inches per code now. So we initially lowered the viburnum hedges there, verified the code, it was 18 inches, and then the plant's just not going to survive with that, so we made the decision just to pull them for now. We were getting replacements, or proposals for replacements with low hanging, for low, smaller plants, and these will be drought tolerant. These things that can be easily maintained and kept at that height that we need it to be. It'll add some color to the median and color to the community in general. Basically, we're looking to start transitioning some of the plants to blue days, dwarf exoras, things of that nature. So that's all that, like I said, very easy to maintain, drought tolerant, very cheap plants, and it just adds pop to the neighborhood, and overall you'll see a general increase in neighborhood.
Do those plants get replaced annually?
They get replaced as needed, yes.
So they're gonna last a little bit longer than.
They'll last a long.
So that's part of
There are, yes, you will have plants die, but they're not going to die as much as viburnums or other things of that nature. As long as they are installed right and established right, like I said, they're very drought tolerant. We have a property over in St. Cloud where that's the majority of everything we had. All of our other plants pretty much died. Those are the only things that were shining bright. It didn't rain for 6 months, there was no rain. So, not saying that they are invulnerable, invincible plants, but they are drought tolerant and will survive.
I want to make sure we're not additional costs by adding them. To add additional, because we're replacing them every year, whatever, because if that's the case, we'll grass them.
My philosophy with any plant replacement and things of that nature, I don't want to make my job complicated. I don't want to show up every time and be like, okay, there's another one plant here that does this. I need something that's going to look good, it's going to survive long term, and it's going to be cost effective. That's all I love it. So that's the plan with that. We do have a proposal from Blade Runners to install fresh playground mulch at the playground here that will meet the ADA requirements. Right now, you only have a few inches, and it just has to be higher. This adds safety in general. Basically, they will clear out any of the debris and dirt that's built up, install a new mulch, and then it just makes it safer for everybody. I'll get into that after the report. We're going to be removing some dead ornamental grasses, and just basically, if it's dead, it's going to be going, and then we'll come back with inventory list of these plants we recommend replacing. These you can just hold off on for a little bit, whether it's cosmetic or not. We obviously want the clubhouse to look as good as possible without interfering with any of our other budget concerns or anything like that. We did just install some new plantings here in the median, right 10 feet from the entrance door there. As soon as they did that, we had a couple days of no rain, there's no irrigation there, so I've been coming by every day, twice a day now, watering those plants in, the landscapers coming by to help assist that. We have hose ready to go. We're going to see if they establish over the next 2 weeks. If they don't, the landscaper will just replace them. And that'll be on their cost because there's systems like this. Right now we do bi-weekly visits with them. So we're inspecting the property and any issues are being addressed at that time with them. The pay repair and work repair was done in conjunction with Kings. Metal installed the pavers, and then as they pulled them up, Kings came by, installed the loops, got everything ready to go for there. There was some concerns at the time. I had worked every step of the way with them of getting those addressed, and anyone's, as we stated before, that could not be addressed. We had an alternate vendor come in. We did save money there. We will be using, or we plan to recommend this vendor for a couple of jobs in the future. They have good pricing. They're very reliable. That type of thing. We did repair the speed bump on the exit side just because it was so off in the bolts. Anytime someone's hitting those vehicles at 25, 30, whatever they're going, the bolts are getting shifted. So we've literally hand pulling bolts out of the ground. It's just not good.
And there's some missing out there now. There's 2 pads missing on the exit.
Even today, we did an emergency repair today because someone hit it, knocked out the middle pads, even though they were secured. We put new bolts in and they're coming back either tomorrow or Monday we're going to redo everything. Basically.
There's no better anchors to put that in? Huh? Yeah, but I work at the VA. Like the VA, they have even smaller bumps than here, and they've been there for 10 years. They haven't moved. And they're bolted to the asphalt.
It's a lot of traffic.
There's 6,000 employees that drive in there every morning.
And the veterans, and the go there.
It's a myriad of factors in terms of quality of the speed bump that you have, the road that's there.
Long term, we need to figure out.
Check how much it is with the company.
How it can be done so that we don't have to be that labor intensive on it.
Correct. As I'm working with this company for this bike trip, I'm getting proposal options for everything, just because this just creates maintenance issues.
It sounds like you're spending too much time out there.
No, like today, I have to call him because of that, and
I had to call a crew from Davenport to come up here and cancel everything there. So I want something that's going to be reliable, and that's still got it there. Moving on to geotero compressions, it's been Herculean effort over the last 2 months. Unfortunately, for anybody that's unaware, this is not a basic pothole situation that we have a problem with. So we can't just get a vendor and have it repaired in a week. It was that type of emergency we would already have it done. The problem here is we're looking to, the engineer recommended getting the CCTV just so we can see what the extent of the damage was in an attempt to save the district some cost. Myself and my staff climbed in there. We got enough video footage to send to the vendor to where that they could build at least a 90% proposal to cover most of the work, and then so we got a good idea with that. It just took time. With what they're going to do now, they're going to use the Vector truck to clean up the pipes. They'll get an inspection of the pipes at that time. Right now, one of them is completely submerged in water, so we don't know if the pipe is cracked or if there's a small hole that's very visible at where the pipe joint is to the basin. And we assume that's the main problem, but we don't know the extent yet.
So I went to look at this thing myself with a flashlight one day, and what I can't understand is that day that I was there, it had not rained in over a week, and there's water gushing into that storm drain. Why?
That's what we don't know yet, so we're trying to figure it out.
That doesn't make any sense, man.
We had Toho out twice to verify that it's not wastewater anywhere near.
It depends on where the stormwater connects to stormwater.
Somebody that's familiar with this community told me that they know that there's some type of spring underneath this land, and that's why we're having all these problems. How do we go about investigating that?
We have to get your district engineer involved.
Yeah, that's more than I think anyone at this table is capable of.
So what the plan is right now, before we get too sidetracked with that, I understand the reasoning there, but I think this will alleviate some of that. So the plan right now is to dig out, they'll basically go about 6 feet on each side of the box, or 4 feet on each side of the box, dig everything out. They're going to put a drain box in so that they can do the repairs. What they have to do is hydrocrete on both sides of the basin, and unfortunately the hole is at the bottom of the basin, which is 12 feet deep. So that's where they have to do the work. They'll dig that out, they'll put new fresh DOT collars on each side. They don't think that we have to do any pipe replacement at the moment, but when we get to the proposal portion, I do recommend authorizing an extra amount in case we do find out that it's needed. But we finally do have one proposal that we think covers everything that we're looking for, and that's what we're going to recommend, which I'll get to in a minute.
And when you say hydrocrete, are you just talking hydrostatic concrete?
The vendor told me it was hydrocrete. I'm not a concrete expert there.
I'd like to know because I know that pipe has been repaired with hydrostatic concrete in the past. And I think, as soon as I heard that word, it just doesn't seem to me like this is a long-term fix. We just might as well spend $90,000 filling it with dirt every other week.
Jared, you said they're gonna get a camera in there and look at some stuff, or
Yeah, he did.
you guys did it, but they're not gonna do any
We
other.
literally climbed down with the ladder and took what we could. Like I said, one was submerged underwater. We cannot.
We're not gonna get a camera to do any other work.
They will be doing that when they're. So the first thing they're going to do is they have to plug the pipes to get the water out to be able to do it.
The only reason I ask is I'm wondering if they can do a little this way, a little that way, and maybe give us a better idea.
And you want to pay them.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you can swindle them into a couple of feet on the other direction, you know. No, I was just wondering.
They're gonna leave the camera and turn the light off.
But luckily, I do have a map attached here, before I get just into the CC, just so you know. So what they have there is, hydrocrete might have been the thing that they initially told me when I was talking to them on the phone. I apologize if I'm wrong about that. On the proposal, they have geotextiles and filter fabric, concrete DOT collar, short load charge, and hydrocrete and construction. So this would basically be like a sealant after everything.
Yeah. Looks like hydrocrete is hydraulic concrete. I'm not sure that's the best solution, but we'll see. So, with that in mind, I have a request that I don't know if the board will agree with me, but, you know, and I hate to say this, but I've lost faith in our engineer altogether. I think he's very green. I think he gives us proposals that are through the roof. And then when we bring him down to reality, then he gives us a proposal that's meaningful and that it's what we want. I'm not interested in changing companies because I think I spoke individually with Jason one time and he told me that they're hard to come by. But is it too much to ask Dewberry to put a more senior engineer or a different engineer on the case that is more diligent and that can understand what our requests are? Because, I mean, today, the same thing. I mean, he's given us a lot of things that I think I told him already that that's not our goal. Our goal is to utilize the money we have now and maximize the repairs that are going to last as long as possible. And I think, you know, he's still broadening his scope to try to do everything at once, and it's not. And then this thing that, because he blessed this, this is the repair that he recommended according to his scope.
That's the second, because we went back and when he
I'm
went.
going to tell you, I'm going to go to people I know, and I'm going to verify what this repair is about, but it doesn't sound good.
Because when he went in, he figured out that what the scope the engineering did was wrong, because he thought that everything was concrete. The engineer is supposed to know what we have.
So that's what I'm saying. And we're paying an engineer. I'm under the impression he's going to come out on the field and look at things, so he understands what he's talking about. I don't think I've ever seen Peter out here look at anything.
Just so you know, he did bless off this. I sent a specific proposal to him that this meet all our needs. He said yes. His only recommendation was that we ask for if they need to replace any of the pipe for a price for that. I'm recommending, instead of harassing the vendor going back and forth with them, which we already have done, just setting a not to exceed and letting them know, hey, you need to do this. Yeah. Give us a price.
They still have to go through Jared for any of that, but we'll already have them built in.
Correct. This was only a few days ago that we got that approval from Peter, so I don't have any time to ask him to readjust their proposal.
And I agree with Mario, because that happened when in January he started pushing to do some things on the pond. And then when the board pushed back, he's like, oh yeah, I checked the 2005, the ponds hasn't changed, so we don't need to do it. Why do you keep pushing us to do something when the...
There was 2 meetings prior to that meeting where he kept bringing up the geotubes that needed to put in for a lot of money. And I just lost faith in him. I don't think that he really knows what we need.
If it's the board's direction, I've got some other contacts up there that are a little higher than Peter, and I can at least talk to him, let him know the board's concerns, and kind of see where we go from there.
Yeah, I'm alarmed also by the bill of 17,000.
I'll track that down. I'm gonna send that out to the
spend
board.
doing for that many hours.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe you can communicate that too,
Yeah.
with him, just, communicate, put him on notice that these are the concerns that are coming from the board. Obviously, from a legal perspective, you have the ability to choose your vendors, and so, if you needed to find someone else, that you do have the option.
No, my question
but
was if
you
we
could
can ask
start with-
Dewberry to provide a different engineer, because that, like I said, I know that engineers are hard to come by, engineer firms, and Dewberry has a good reputation. I just think this individual doesn't have the experience that we need here, based on our.
I'll make some contact. Let me see what I can do. Okay. And I will note, we use All Terrain extensively. If they're taking price off the table, if there was one company we call out, if there was an emergency repair, it's All Terrain. They are a premier company. I've got full faith that what they proposed is.
I don't question the company, I question the work that the engineers recommend.
Well, this proposal was created because they went down, took pictures, and sent those pictures to the companies. They're the ones that made the proposal as to how to prepare.
We got the generalized scope from the engineers to start getting at least people in the conversation of, okay, yes, I can do something like this, let me come look at the work, or people would tell us straight up, we don't do pipe work, those types of things. So with that, we started there, then we got the camera footage and sent them, okay, here, now we have camera footage, you have a little better idea of how much this would cost, and we met them out here and got them to do their own inspections, and I told them, here's the engineer's recommendation, please let me know your professional recommendation, we'll confirm it with our engineer, and if we need to find a middle ground or change a thing or two, then we can do that. That process went through, Peter recommended that this was acceptable to meet the needs of what the district's looking for to get these repairs done effectively and quality, and I'm confident that they can do that. Unfortunately, the price is the price, but from the two proposals that we have that can do the work, this is by far the cheaper.
And it's to reinstate, it's a company we've got a lot of faith in All Terrain to get the job done. They've done some extensive work all over Central Florida for us.
Is there any warranty implied in here?
That's what your council's going to draft up in a front-end document that will lay out all the warranty provisions.
Did that include how long that will take to get fixed?
When they start the work, it'll be 4 days, 2 weeks roughly lead time.
Did they say if it needs to, I'm assuming that there's no traffic on that area?
That's what we're gonna have to figure out over the next 2 weeks. The problem is, if we try to delay this any further, that 4-foot hole can turn into a 1-foot hole. Take a vendor, get it done, because it has gotten worse in the 2 months that we've already been trying to get this figured out.
It's taken too long to get to this point. 2 months for
During this, my recommendation would be, we're gonna look for an alternate place for the people that are affected by this to park. We've already found them a different place for their trash, but obviously getting their cars to their homes is not gonna be a viable option for some of these residents. So we'll have to find a different place for them to park, and I would contact Orlando, maybe we could have
I think for those days, we would just suspend all towing for those days. I'm not gonna say we're gonna put that out to everyone, but.
We have no choice.
The last thing we want is any one of these folks to be towed when they're already.
So,
una pregunta. O sea, vamos a seguir iguales como estamos el problema del parqueo.
Por ahora sí se ve.
Pero la ley solamente va a ser para Villa Palma o para toda la comunidad.
Las reglas que están en este momento es Villa Palma, Florencia, el West District y los callejones de atrás de las townhouses.
Villa Otero también, ¿cierto?
No.
hasta ahora no.
Villa Otero es más pequeña que...
Yo sé, pero eso no es lo que el ingeniero dijo.
¿Ah?
Eso no es lo que el ingeniero dijo.
¿Quién es el ingeniero?
Él no está aquí hoy, pero él es el que dio esas calles.
So, en el próximo meeting, él va a venir.
Él va a venir para el próximo meeting.
Él viene para el próximo meeting.
En septiembre. Okay.
So are we looking at the proposals, or we're still on the picture?
We're still on the
Okay.
I'm just giving you the
Gotcha.
situation, and then I'll get the proposals for you.
Yep.
Luckily, we've covered the majority of that proposal, so it's just.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. But there is a map of the affected pipes that we're going to be looking into and addressing, and when it gets time to do CCTV and those things, we don't have to, we've already done it for those, so we'll get that adjusted as it is. We did, like I said, install the 88 truncated domes here. Right now, the focus was at the clubhouse. It's up to the board if you want to explore further throughout the community, but due to the cost of installing these, that would be a major,
Let me just take a picture.
one-time thing. I would recommend doing that years down the road. Right here at the clubhouse, we have the most traffic of pedestrians and things of that nature. We just think that's the priority where it's needed to be put forward. We did change out, as I said, the street signage at the front entrance there. Made it more clear, and it has a better reflective material on there. We added those linear posts to try to increase the safety there. We can look at additional options for opening up or moving it as needed. For reference, some of the orange cones were 5 feet further. We just moved them back. They're easy to move and adjust as needed. So whatever the board decides that they want that to look like, we can make it accommodate. Today, actually, the barbecue area, the barbecue had rotted and fallen over. Our guys picked that up today and secured the area so there's no exposed metal or anything there. We're looking into replacing the papers. Luckily, our guys were said they were here for the emergency repair. I got some of the emergency items done while they were here, but for these paper repairs and other things like that, we're still working with the vendor to get it warranted. Anything that is going to cause issue with safety, we'll have our guys come by. Like these 5 papers, we'll probably.
You're working with the vendor that did the work?
Yes, that it's under warranty.
Yeah, there's still warranty provisions under this.
I'm sorry, I had this labeled overlooking park cleanup again.
So the damaged barbecue, you guys are
That's
looking.
fine.
It's gone, we took it out.
No,
So the
also,
people-
but we need a replacement, you know.
Correct.
Yeah, as soon as possible.
For the moment, we'll just get it out of there.
Yeah, no, correct. Yeah.
So we did, after many hours, get all of our Spectrum accounts organized, set up correctly. We're finalizing a couple of details in terms of getting them the billing options of our tax exemption, all that stuff there to clean up a lot of the numbers. I'll go over that in just a second. What we did ask them, because our vendor had reported that they suspected the coaxial was causing shorts with their system and asked us to look into it. Spectrum inspected, they said there wasn't a system, or there wasn't an issue with their, and what happens is we have this board set up for our security system that if you look on the picture, it's tied into its own ground on the board. It's not tied into the main building ground. So we have to have a master electrician to correct that. That is where you're having a lot of these issues, and that is being scheduled to work on.
And that's something that, you're going to schedule it right away, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. With Energy Today, we use for these type of things, or Terry Electric. If you call them, their Energy Today will be out here within 1 to 2 business days, depending on.
Yeah, so we need that to prevent any issue.
We installed LED lights in the building, the electronic door lock was set for the meeting room here. The original lock had broken off, and we made a decision that we've had circumstances where an issue happened, we couldn't unlock the room for whoever needed it. It just was the better option in our opinion, for doing that. It was cheap. We did get all the AC controllers updated with Nest system, everything we have, I can control remotely as needed. So we are monitoring that. Obviously, we're in the much hotter time of the year, so our boats are currently up, but my plan is over the next couple quarters to bring you average pays how much we've ended up saving with these new systems. We're looking to update outdated and broken restroom filters. Some of these, when we got into them, the soap we put in is clear. When it comes out, it's dark brown. So we replace those. We clean them the best we can, but some of them just have to be replaced, and we're just going to update that. We've already gone over the janitorial stuff. The pool gate we're looking to replace with a heavier duty one that people can't just walk through and step over too easily without damaging it. With here,
Is that going to be both of them or just one?
both of them need to be changed out because you have to have push bar exits.
Correct.
So with the system that we use on the property, it's the card reader, you have your card reader, but the lock itself is very small, so and you can't step on it like how you have here. So they come by, they do their card reader, click open, if they need to close and leave, they just push bar out. And it's just a better option. We use Guardian Access for a lot of that, and I'll get in touch with them. Any questions on the report itself? Okay. Moving on to Spectrum invoices. So there was multiple different accounts set up here. We cut one of them off completely, reduced it to 2 accounts. One account is here, one account is at the gate. With any phones and TV services, all the extra stuff has been removed. We're estimating about $4,000 savings a year from that. If we want those back, we can do that at any time, but I do not think it's needed at the moment.
So there's no TV, not even in the gym.
I'm sorry.
And then also you put the Wi-Fi for the guests as well.
Yes, so we changed the setup here. We have new all updated systems, so we're getting higher speeds for everything. And we have a Spectrum hotspot is here, so if you're a Spectrum user or any relative is a Spectrum user, they can log on to that for free, get free internet if they have their login, or there is a free option. You have questions?
Yeah, I was going to tell you something about that. Because I came here to do some work one time, and I couldn't get on the internet because you guys had changed it. And and Herman kept telling me, it's this one. I kept trying, I was using my credentials and it wasn't going through. So I don't know if they told you, but I figured it out. So through the My Spectrum services, you have to download a Wi-Fi profile onto your device. Once you have that, as soon as you walk in here, it just connects automatically. Like you don't really have to do anything, but you have to download that outside of here.
But you have the steps,
right?
So if you could do like an instruction or something?
When we're updating all the signage, that's part of the process of giving them explanations of your 2 options for getting on the internet. Otherwise, they go on a free trial, get 30 minutes. The speed for that is probably not very great, but it is an option for them to use.
No, it's a great thing to have for the people that live here. Everybody has Spectrum.
Yep.
You all right?
Don't die on us.
Yeah. That's what I got 2 more minutes.
We need you.
Okay, where are we at?
Just for another 20 minutes, man.
So we're in section C, right?
So we have proposal for playgrounders for installing the playground mulch. I would just recommend approving this. It's $13.20.
And that's, like you said, that's something that has to be done.
Correct.
To prevent any lawsuit
There
or.
are ADA standards for what the mulch amount of inches is supposed to be from there. We are not at that right now.
So I go ahead and do a motion to approve the installation of the playground mulch for $1,320.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
So we did receive a few proposals for this work, but some of them either did not cover everything that we were looking for, or can only do certain parts. I did let people have up till 4 p.m. today to submit bids, still trying to get the lowest price possible. We didn't get an extra one, unfortunately. We didn't get any extra ones, unfortunately. So the 2 ones that we have for all-terrain, which we recommend, and we feel like this will cover everything. Their cost is $73,956.90. What I would recommend is if we do decide to go with them, to set a not to exceed of, I would recommend probably $20,000 on top of this in case any pipe needs to be repaired. That way we don't have to have a special meeting or anything like that, and we would let everyone know if that was the case. But I think this would cover all the bases so that we can get this ball rolling immediately. The other cost was from Rose Paving for $96,832, and that only covers one of the 2 depressions. That's not even both of them. We don't have the second proposal for that yet. So the only company I have confidence in is all-terrain.
So Jason, if
Yes.
we need to replace the pipe, doesn't the engineer need to check that out first?
I mean, we have him involved in that
He's
point.
gonna be
Yeah.
involved in the process.
Yeah, he's gonna have to come out and inspect to make sure the work is done before the payments are made as well.
Smaller things I can help assist him with and give him the information he needs, and I'm on the phone with him, we're really going through all the paper stuff and everything of what he needed. For this, I'm gonna have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has to be.
Yeah, we're not qualified to provide a lot of oversight of this project.
I want pictures that you went down and looked at this.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe he will.
No, because right now, he's been doing all the job for the engineering, and he's taking everything, and sending it to him. Yeah. But on that, I will go.
And again, this would be coming out of your capital reserve, just for full clarity, yeah.
Because we need to fix it. So I will do a motion and see how it goes. So all-terrain, for a maximum of 90,000, because that's including the 15, just in case anything else.
I would recommend 20, but 15.
We're obviously not gonna spend, I mean, if it goes over $1, then we have to come back is the challenge. So you could do a not to exceed a 94, and obviously our goal is not to spend that, but it's up to you guys.
I don't want to spend the same time.
Right.
I think 94 would be correct.
Okay, so then I will do it again. So I will do a motion to approve the all-terrain tractor service, going above $94,000 for the repair of the Altero and, the Altero.
Yeah.
Please let me know when this work starts, because I'd like to.
This is definitely,
I'll take
keeping the
off
word
work
up
to
on.
be here for that.
Absolutely.
I really am a little skeptical about this repair, but.
Okay. Do we have a second?
You got a second, sorry, I'll second. You got a second today.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Right.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
I didn't say anything.
You did? Are you opposed?
I'm waiting for a vote, yeah, I oppose this,
All
but
right, oh, sorry.
it's just me.
I got you. Passes 4-1. And obviously, for the board's sake, council's definitely going to be drafting up a formal agreement before anything starts, so that we have all that laid out. And we'll definitely, this is obviously an item of huge concern to the community, so we'll keep you updated.
It'll be done tomorrow. They'll have it tomorrow.
So one question, so
Yeah.
when you do so
Yeah.
we need,
I'll be back.
for the contract, how we do that? So we certify, with, on another
Ratify
meeting, in another meeting, the contract?
No.
You actually won't need to ratify this one,
Okay.
because you guys have approved the work. But
Gotcha.
she's just going to draft up a front-end document that lays out a lot more protections.
And
for the
the
district.
contract's going to look identical to the other contracts in this
Yeah.
agreement that I drafted. Like the Mateo one, it's gonna change slightly to reflect these services. I'm gonna work with them on what they think is a reasonable warranty. We'll try to get the greatest warranty we can. I'll be working with Jared, they have experience with them, but it's something that needs to be done right away, so we'll try to get the best warranty.
And we've worked with All-Terrain on several of these districts
Okay.
and count projects
Okay,
before, so.
and I think they may have
They've
a
done Deer
prior
Island.
one with a one-year warranty?
Yeah, and a Deer, you can just use one of the Deer Island ones.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Well,
And
it'll
I
be
think
done.
Jared's got
No.
one more quick update for you guys.
Yeah, so I just got this email in during this meeting. So yesterday, finally got all the internet figured out at the gate. Somerset was able to get up there and look into the system. He said after they've done their inspection, the hard drives and files are so corrupted now that they have no access to it. The manufacturer hasn't supported this model since 2016. And he said, unfortunately, their technical support department cannot fix this. He says recommend contacting the server builder or the installer, who I'm assuming was Vera.
Yep.
So we can either go the route of
So council, what I'm
out to fix it, if possible, if it's even possible to fix, or have ServiceAct come to us with the next meeting with proposals for building our own access to the system.
So how we can do, because that system was working properly, when we cancel in Vera,
Yeah,
then
there was an agreement in place.
they destroyed, so that means they destroyed.
Spoken to their attorney on that.
But it really sabotaged the system, because, I mean, we were not aware that the cameras weren't gonna work, that the system wasn't gonna work. We just canceled the gate contract.
Right.
And it seems like when they came to remove their equipment, they just destroyed everything. And I was trying to look up and see, that system, but that system's like a German-made system. I don't even think they sell it in the United States anymore.
So pretty much that's a server.
But I think it would be nice if they could come and at least put it in working order, since it was in working order when we canceled them.
Okay.
You know, or at least tell, what is it, service status?
Yep.
At least tell them how to do it, because I'm sure there's a way to fix it. I don't think it's corrupt, I just think it's a software. I actually thought it was gonna be a license issue, because I believe that you have to buy a license for that software. And I thought that was gonna be the issue, but now you're telling me it's so corrupt, I mean, I think it's worth at least contacting them and finding out what our recourse is.
Absolutely, yeah, well, there is an agreement, they drafted it, but, there's an agreement in place that I can look at and see if we have any rights to go after them.
And again, we just got this information, so we haven't even had a chance to really try to look at other alternatives yet, so just wanted to give you an update.
Okay, so
And
I
I
can
know
follow
for
up
sure
with
it
them
was-
to see what we can do.
And I know for sure it was working up to the day that we canceled the contract.
Okay,
So it was working on it. It just,
So with this new bombshell now, is that gonna put the gate back more?
That, the determination with that is, the cameras are just for recourse actions, basically. And you can see that, so that's up to the board to decide. The gate, it's not gonna affect the gate going up and down, or people being able to access it, this is just for, damages, people and that kind of things.
So, but we won't be able to record anything.
Not at all, correct.
Thank you, Rivera.
Yeah.
So-
That's all that we have, we go to supervisor's request.
I just think if we get to the point where that system needs to be replaced, I think we need to start looking at MyQ, and I believe they have a system that will integrate everything into one system, so we don't have this problem of everybody having a different system, and cameras not being compatible, and all this ridiculousness that I'm hearing.
It's a good option.
So,
Real quick, going back to the repairs of the Altero, is that the price for both, right?
The 72,000 is for both.
And the smaller one, that's the one that there is no issue with the piping?
So where the bigger hole is right now, that's where you have the gushing
Yes.
water, it's very visible, there's a hole there. From what we saw with the smaller one, it looks like there is some gapping where concrete hits the HDPE piping, corrugated piping. And it might be small where, okay, rain comes in, the water drains through the road, maybe a little trickle comes in, takes a pebble or two. It's very small, there was no, when we looked in the pipe, there was no standing water there, but there was sign of sediment there. Very small, not enough to block the flow of water or anything like that. But so they will check all that, they will reseal all those connection points. If they notice while they're there that there is cracks or issues with the piping, we can address that at the time. Small cracks can be patched or sealed with polyurethane injections, these type things of this nature. If they need to replace the pipe, that's why we have that extra stuff for them.
All these things are happening because when the developer built all that section, they only do one layer instead of two.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
For Jason Jarrett, I know we're loading up on this gate being operational here soon. Just a couple ideas, just so you know, I want to see into is there any way we could work with the vendor, maybe getting those gates to swing without any access, just to get our community going, hey, they're functioning, they're working again, to prepare for the actual functionality. And then with that, maybe in the sign cabinet that's up there, something that says like, have you turned your paperwork in for the gate? I know you're saying you have low compliance and getting that in. Maybe if they're functioning and swinging and people are seeing them moving and they're seeing that sign, we can drive that compliance. And then the second thing is, I know you're a tenant only here Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Is there any way that we can communicate with the community that like maybe they could slide their stuff under the door, just to try to make it easier? I know on the weekends for me, I'm like, I have my own stuff to do, I have an agenda, like that kind of stuff to do.
We can communicate that to them, we've also been taking them by email, I mean, any way they get them to us, we'll take them.
So that's another one, so that's good. So if you take it by email, also I will suggest to send it to the HOA where what email they can send it to you, because we got a lot of people out of the country, you know, so they're gonna come here, you know, to drop a paperwork.
Just try to give us
Speaking of potential options, there might be like a Dropbox that we can install on the door. My concern is people are dropping in their personal information.
That's not a good idea.
That's why I thought, slide under the door.
No, they gotta hand it to somebody, because it's sensitive information.
unless it's a lockbox, you know.
But even then,
Yeah.
all these kids who got running rampantly and destroying everything.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna start hitting them out once a week. We sent one to the HOA to distribute today, just to remind folks to turn them in. So I think we're gonna just start hitting that once a week, to try to get the rest. I think we've gotten a couple hundred at this point. So, I mean, we're getting there.
And another one, now that he mentioned the kids, so we were talking about the security, to move the time from 6 p.m. to like 2 a.m. Because pretty much that's when happening people in the pool at 9, 11, 12, and we don't have security. So during the day, nothing happens. Usually it's at night. So I already spoke with the vendor. They say they can do it. They just waiting, obviously, you know, between us.
Is it more expensive to run the security at night?
It's by the hour.
I think you mentioned something like that to me before.
Correct.
About doing that.
I was gonna say, I'm getting with them this week to finalize details and everything of what we're looking for. I've just been so wrapped up in this Vio thing that it's consumed everything. And then, so now these two things are basically done, we can move on.
That's what I went ahead and helped them a little
I
bit.
think I like the idea for various reasons. One, we can make sure that people leave once the facilities are closed. Number two is, you know, maybe in the future, we can grant some access to the gym early morning, because people like to work out before going to work or something like that. If you have a security guard here, maybe that could be an option, to have the gym open only for that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it's a great idea, and everything that happens here happens at night. It doesn't happen during the day. That's it.
Motion to adjourn.
Are we there?
We'll announce the next meeting, obviously.
Jason got 5 more items.
Hold on. No, I do not. September 12th at 5 o'clock. We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Yeah, second. Motion.
All in
Motion
favor?
to adjourn.
Yep. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.